Got it.
Okay.
To this computer. Okay.
Okay, and what we usually do at these events is we have Julia do a centering for all of us so that we can all get in the same space and get ready to have this experience together. And what the agenda is Julia do that event, do that centering. Then Gar's going to give us an update of what's happening in the cosmic knowledge of what's happening for UFO and exopolitics for this past month and forward. Then I'll introduce David, and he has a beautiful slideshow that he'll do. And then we have Q&A. So whether if you can stay or not stay, I know some of you are traveling. If you could either raise your hands. What we'll like to do is, if we can, have you off camera and muted during David's presentation. And then when there's a Q&A, have you all come back, and Ross will lead the Q&A with David. And David said he loves the Q&A. So hopefully we don't tax him too much, but get your questions ready. And then we will talk about our next month's presentation and then close. So thrilled to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. And Julia, how are you doing? Are you ready to go? You need to unmute, dear.
Yeah, everybody's muted by default. Julia, let's see. I'm gonna unmute her.
There.
Okay. So if you wouldn't mind, everyone, if you could mute your sound if you're not a speaker, so that we get a good recording.
Yeah.
And you can come off camera if you'd like.
Let's all relax in our chairs and take a deep breath. Let it out. Remember our unified purpose here. The love that we are and that we have for each other, and this lovely planet and this space and this place in space that we're in. I'm going to read the love affirmation. It was written as a step up from the Great Invocation at the time of Findhorn, when these energies are coming in. From the heart of me that is the heart of God, love streams forth to all my worlds, and I am one. From the light we share within the mind of God, love streams forth to all our worlds, and we are one. From the race of men where flames the will of God, love streams forth to all his worlds, and man is one. From the all in all that is the life of God, love streams forth, God's plan made real, and all are one. With God as our beloved, we are the plan on earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Yes, thank you.
And let's see if I can share the screen. Perfect. This one, and share. And see if this comes out. Oh, it does. Oh, good. Okay, so this is the month in review of UFOs news. So let's see if this works. Oh, yes, it does. Oh, good. So one of the things I thought was really interesting is this last month, there have been massive amounts of moonquakes. And NASA has said, oh, it's only due to the core of the moon cooling. And I'm going, well, that doesn't really ring very true with me. When we crashed, when we crashed spacecraft onto the moon, it really rang. And so that's not necessarily an indicator that there's a real solid core. What do you think, David?
Well, my question is cooling from what?
Yeah, that would be another good question since it's a stable system, supposedly.
Well, it's NASA being NASA, never a straight answer.
I think so.
No, they're just a bureaucratic cesspool.
Indeed.
I've got no patience with them. I've had so much problems over the years and decades with them.
Right.
And I ran around with NASA in the days of Warner von Braun and
right.
That kind of crowd. And most of the astronauts were rotating through the command in Houston. So Capcom was an astronaut. And I knew all these people. And what you got today, instead of the steely-eyed rocket men that they refer to, which was the people I grew up with, now you got these little nerds running around driving their Porsche cars and got their condos at Cocoa Beach, and they don't care anymore about the space program than pun on word, the man in the moon. And so the people I worked with would have paid you to let them work there.
Right.
That's the way it used to be. But
not so anymore.
No, there's activity on the moon because there's something happening up there. I don't know what. There's a hollowness in the moon that you just can't get your head wrapped around. I have sat here and worked for years, and I calculate that the openness in the moon is about 2,500 miles in diameter.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So you have a 3,000-mile moon in diameter. You can put the continent of North America on one side of it completely, lay it down, ×2 on the other side. So it's pretty good structure. Now, our crust that's on our Earth is 26 miles thick. Mm-hmm. And then you got the outer mantle, the inner mantle, the outer core, the inner core, and core. So you got about 4,000 miles to drill down to get to the core. And the furthest we ever drilled down, though, was Project Mohole, which was about 5 miles. So 5 miles into a 26-mile crust, you hardly made a dent. Okay, now you got to go back to the moon. 3,000 miles in diameter and a 2,500-mile space. You still have a 500-mile crust. Ours is only 26. The moon is 500. But there's something else going on. Have you ever looked at all the depth of the craters? You have one crater the size of a living room. Then you have a crater the size of New York City. Right. And both of them are the same depth.
Yeah.
What the hell is that about?
You can see it in this picture.
Yeah, you can't do that. I mean, so what's happening is whatever is happening, there's impacts there, but they only go down to a certain level and they hit something and they stop. So all the craters, despite how big they are in diameter, they're all the same depth. And nobody's got time to look at that. Like, geologically, you can't explain that. That's not possible.
Right.
But it is. Hell, you got Tycho, which stretches 3,000 miles across the face of the moon. And yet its depth is the same depth of a crater the size of a living room.
Right.
I mean, come on. And then Neil and I would talk about it. And when he got back from the moon, it was we had a lot of interesting discussions, and we'd go up to a certain point and stop every time. And Neil used to be he was an Eagle Scout, and I swear, gosh, he was the three fingers, always trying
Yeah,
to turn his
yes.
on. I mean, he really was that. That was no joke. I mean, he was a. Somebody asked me, he says, is he a big Boy Scout? I said, God, yeah, he is. Um, and the reason Neil was picked to walk on the moon is because Neil's psychological profile showed that he was a hermit, a recluse. When he came back from the moon, where was he? He was gone.
He was hiding.
Yeah, well, he really wasn't. I knew exactly where he was. He first went to South Dakota to hang out with his brother. They had oil wells out there, and they sold out before the 80s. So they made this ton of money and left before the big bust. It was just astounding. I asked him, I said, you got a psychic in your pocket or something? How do you do that?
Yeah. Right.
And he said, just lucky. But I said, yeah, Neil, but God almighty. So he's doing okay now financially. But he's a recluse, and he would not spend for anything. He made one car commercial for Chrysler, and he drove that car that they gave him till it just literally fell apart because he wouldn't buy a new car, though he could have bought a new car every year. It was just the way he was. Immensely private. He's dead now and he's gone. You
Right.
want to go to his grave? You can't.
Yeah.
He was cremated and his ashes were thrown in the ocean.
Oh my goodness.
Location. He didn't want a monument that people come and see him. I said, Neil, you're carrying a pretty big, hefty, title here, and people would like to show their respect and see your grave. Nope, there is no grave on him. And his mother's the same way. The parents, everybody was. Not his grandmother was the worst. They're Germans. They're immigrants that came over to America, and they settled in Ohio, in western Ohio, in a town called Wapakoneta, which is an Indian word. And he had. Let me explain my relationship. The way it wasn't Neil I was interested in.
It was his mother.
Yeah, his mother Viola.
Right.
She was the one. She's the one I met first, and the way I met her is she's the mother of the first man on the moon. So Governor Gilligan of the time of Ohio made her a dignitary.
Right.
So she would hang these medals of winners of all these science things. And after about the 6th or 7th medal she hung on me in 3 weeks, she looked at me and she goes, I know you. My God, what are you doing? I said, I guess I'm a little busy. I was winning everything. And so she said, why don't you come over to my house? I said, sure. Yeah, I ain't going to turn that down. So I went over there to visit her and we hit it off. We just, so much so, she became my surrogate mother.
Right.
And then she taught me how to can, where you can vegetables. We can chicken too. But this canning operation wasn't, it was not normal.
It was huge.
It was. We had like a small factory in the backyard.
Right.
And I would do all the, they do the preps and the blanching, and I would heat up the lids and the jars and the racks and all that stuff, very mechanical. And I really got into it, and she started teaching me how to can everything. And when we can, they were members of a farmers co-op. So we didn't can 300 or 400 jars. We had 300 or 400 jars in a day.
Right.
We canned 30, 40,000 jars because we're
Wow.
feeding the entire farmers co-op. So we're busy back there. And so I came over. Neil was visiting, and he was in the kitchen. And I saw Neil. Went, oh, hi, Neil. And he goes, you must be David. I went, yeah, boom. I went right past him. And he said, Mom's in the backyard. Yeah, I know the way. And I was gone.
Oh,
And
that's
then
great.
Viola came up to me and said, Neil said something to me about you. I said, oh, yeah, what? I saw him in the kitchen. She said, Mom, if I didn't get out of the way fast enough, I swear to God, I think David put a footprint on my head to get back there. And I went, oh, gosh, I didn't hurt his feelings, did I? And she goes, well, when you get a few minutes, could you spend some time with Neil? Now, how many times do you get asked a question like that?
I
You know,
think
I'm sitting
so.
there going, nobody's gonna believe this. I've just been asked, if you get a few minutes, can you spend some time with Neil Armstrong? And I
So,
did. And
David,
we got
about the
along fine.
moon,
Yeah.
do you think that they're building something there or there's fighting?
There's something going on. I tell you what, after spending years with Neil and talking, he would come up to a point and cut off. And I could tell it was bothering him because, see, Boy Scouts don't want to hold back. They tell the truth.
Right.
They do that. I do that thing to him and drive him crazy.
I bet
And
you do.
and he would go, I want to tell you, but I can't. And that's
Right.
the most he ever said. And that's a
Okay.
lot in itself. And I said, are they threatening you with your pension and other stuff? And so I can't tell you, David. I just can't talk about it.
Yeah, they
So
threatened him a lot, I bet.
it upset him pretty bad to a point where I quit asking because, I'm tight with his mother. I'm tight with his dad, Stephen. So I don't want to do anything to upset things. So I just said, okay. So we leave it alone. But man, I'm telling you, I did say something that really hit a nerve. God, it was a bad day. He come back there and we've been dancing in conversations for weeks. And finally, I just snapped at him. I said, Neil, you and Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, you three come back from the moon. You should have been like helium balloons. We've had a hard time getting you off the ceiling. You'd be so damn excited. You guys are so damn depressed. What happened up there? Have you ever noticed interviews with them? There's nobody happy. They're depressed as they can be. They were being locked down really bad. So leading up to a point, I had a conversation with Neil. I said, Neil, let me guess. What would you say if I thought the moon is an RV and somebody parked it there? And he went, he just smiled. He goes, yeah, who are you talking to? And I said, I'm just guessing, man. But I tell you, I can go for the next 3 days here telling you why we shouldn't have a moon.
Right.
And he says, yeah, I know the arguments. He said, you sound like Chris Kraft. Chris Kraft, not the guy that built the boats, but the guy that was one of the former heads of NASA.
Right.
So Chris Kraft gave a talk one time and I heard it. And he was telling why we shouldn't have a moon. And it was outrageous.
Oh, I agree. I've heard those arguments too.
I can get on a blackboard today, fill 2 or 3 blackboards with it, but I can still do it. Well, little noodle still works.
Yeah.
I can do celestial mechanics and show you that the Earth does not have the mass to capture a moon as big as it is, much less lock it into a tidal lock where it doesn't even turn.
Absolutely.
It can't do that. It cannot do that. And yet there it is. Look at the moon compared to Earth and look at the moon. Look at the 2 moons on Mars. They look like Idaho potatoes. They're called Deimos and Phobos. They're small little things.
Yes.
And there's nobody else in the solar system that's got a moon as big as our planet is, just about. I mean, it's gigantic.
Right.
And then, so that's one big problem. Another problem, it wasn't always here. And then they said, well, wait a minute. The official thing says, the solar system was forming, a body collided with another, chunked out the Gulf of Mexico, and that's where the moon came from. I said, oh, really? Well, explain to me this. Out of the 1,200 pounds of rocks we brought back, why were they 5 million years younger than us?
Right.
So they went, we don't know about that. Well, if it's made of the same material, it should be the same, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
But it's 5 million years younger. So I said, well, they don't have as many miles on their RV as we got on our planet.
Right.
And somebody pulled that thing up here because if you, somebody began, I think it was Ross said that, research this, Ross. Hopi Indians will tell you about a time when there was no moon in the sky.
Yes, absolutely. And there is some places in Africa where they tell exactly their story. It says in the writing that there is a time in their history there is a there is a no moon. Earth do
I
not
mean,
have
come
any
on,
moon.
y'all. Think about that. And then the moon shows up. Fortunately, we didn't have modern developed nations, or they would have had a hell of a time with the tidal change.
Oh,
The
yeah.
oceans got into a tidal change. If the moon would leave now, we'd be so messed up in our ecology, it would just be unbelievable. I don't even know if we would survive.
It messes up the weather a lot.
Oh, it would. Even more so now, because it's kind of,
Yeah.
after eons of time, it's grown dependent on it being there. And but yeah, so I followed back up, went and got a group of cosmologists, and that's not people that do your hair. It's they
Right.
work in the field of astronomy, very serious science, not astrology, but astronomy. And they're very particular about that, but they're fun to talk to. And I asked them, I said, "Hey, explain this to me. When the moon first showed up, it got really close to us, didn't it?" And they said, "Yeah." "How far?" 22,300 miles away. It stopped. Wait a minute. A mass that big came into Earth 22,300 miles away, which, by the way, is the same exact point for geostationary orbit.
Mhm.
Coincidence. Bullshit.
Right.
So it came in there and stopped. I said, that meant that if you were a Native American Indian, you stepped out and you had moon from left to right, top to bottom of the entire sky filled with moon. Yeah. And then it's been moving away about 3 inches per year. So now it's at 240,000 miles, depending on place of orbit you measure. So it's about 237,000, 245,000 miles away, depending on orbit. And then he went, yeah. And none of this is making sense. Okay, you can't be doing this stuff. And a mass that big, I can show you on a blackboard, it's not going to stop at 22,300 miles. It's going to keep on plowing into the earth.
Right.
It never touched us.
Right.
So how do you answer this stuff? There are no answers.
Other than it was,
there
it's
are answers,
artificial.
but there are answers, but they won't fit our little pigeonholes.
No, they won't.
So
Well, thank you, David.
That's
Let me proceed on.
That's just a really brief background on the moon, y'all, and you can research
I
all this stuff up.
understand.
And it's just stupid, the stuff I hear from NASA about the moon. Whenever they got something to say about the moon, unless it's on fire, there's a war up there, I just don't even want to listen to it.
Exactly.
Because they're not going to tell you what's going on.
Right.
And it's and they want to go to Mars. Hell with going to Mars. Mars is 42 million miles away one way. The moon is only 240,000 miles away. Which one is easier to get to? The moon.
Right.
And we're not through with the moon. There's so much to be learned up there.
Indeed.
And we were told you can't go up there. And now NASA has said there are these areas that they forbid you to go visit. If I ever get a spaceport built, I guarantee you my list of my landing sites is going to be the very list that they say you can't go to.
Right.
For instance, the big arch up there.
Yeah.
St. Louis. Except St. Louis arch is what, like 1,500 feet? This thing's like 3 miles.
Right.
Well, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
And then there's these big towers up there, look like cooling towers. I don't know what they are, but they're not made of moon material. So how'd that get there? Then there's this big thing that looks like a big antenna, and all of this is clustered within a couple mile radius. So it's like a complex.
It is.
What's that antenna thing? Let's land on it, not
right.
I don't own it. And if there's a door, let's go knock on the door. Hey, anybody there? And tell everybody that the first thing we did, and I asked Neil this question, and it sounds like a joke, but it upset him to no end. Mm-hmm. And I told him, Neil asked me, he said, well, if you think there's somebody up there, why haven't we been back? And I just turned around and I just flipping said to him, but I was serious. I said, because we're a bunch of pigs. We dropped 400,000 pounds of junk on the moon. 96 bags of feces are sitting up there from the astronauts. They had to throw it out the door somewhere.
Yes.
And you throw all this stuff on somebody's roof, and then you plant a flag and say, hey, we're going to come back here and live. You know what they're going to
Right.
do? They're going to drive up to a crater and flag you over and tell you, hey, you like it up here? Take some dust, grab some rocks, take some stuff back with you. And then eventually y'all just stop coming here and don't ever come back again. Or we'll blow up something. Maybe they showed them an asteroid out there somewhere and they evaporated it. But we did not come back.
Right.
So I'm telling you, there's something going on up there, y'all. It's not people wearing tinfoil hats running around sounding stupid. I can do celestial mechanics and prove to you certain things about the moon, why it should
Right.
not be there, and yet it is. And right in front of you, and you won't even think about it. And that's
Thank you, David. That's really good. And that really is enlightening about the moon. Let's see. I have just a couple more slides and then you're on.
Okay. All righty. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's just fine.
I'm interrupting you.
did
No,
good.
it's not okay. No, it's not. You go right ahead.
Okay. The other thing that's happening now, they're starting to do disclosure in Congress, and they're spinning everything really wildly. And one of the current spins is that no, they're not from outer space. It's interdimensional, making it hard to understand and not necessarily credible. So that seems to be the latest spin from the things that I've heard from Goresh, I think.
Yeah. That's
And
kind
then
of like
this,
it's kind of like you're kind of pregnant.
yeah, yes, kind of.
Either you are or you're not. What is it? And interdimensional. Well, my God, if it's interdimensional, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
just
The last
crazy.
thing I've got, there was very little news that was just this last month. It was mainly radio silence. Kentucky our tourist board is inviting aliens to come visit Lexington.
Okay, I guess they like riding
Imagine
horses.
that. They're saying in the off chance that aliens do exist, we'll invite them.
That's what I would do with the moon.
Yeah,
I'd go back to the moon and knock on the door and say, hey, can we come and visit and start off on the right foot? We'll take all of that 400,000 pounds of junk back to Earth. We'll take it to a place called Sotheby's in New York, and we'll auction it off and pay for the entire program.
Yeah, I think so. All right, that's it for my presentation. So I'll hand it back to Kathy.
Okay, thank you. So let's see, get it back on speaker. Well, it's not working. Gar, you're still full screen here. Let me see if I can. There
Yeah,
we go.
it went out of, it's gone.
No, now you're full screen. Okay, well, everyone, I am very excited to introduce you to someone who obviously doesn't need much of an introduction, David T. Adair. And it's funny because I grew up in Southern Ohio and he spent his time in West Virginia and Ohio. So I feel like we're both Buckeyes at some level, which is if you're from there, you know what that means. Anyway.
Yeah, worse is not.
So at the age of 11, David built his first of hundreds of rockets, which he designed and test flew. At 17, he won the most outstanding in the field of engineering sciences from the U.S. Air Force. At 19, he designed and fabricated a state-of-the-art mechanical system for changing jet turbine engines for the US Navy that set world record turnaround times that still stand today. He continues to work and speak on advanced technology and sustainable energy for the whole planet. And tonight we get to hear a lot of information that hopefully will give us some insights into the aspects that are coming forward in this time of high change that David knows from his experience of being connected to a being that he met in Area 51 that he'll talk about, and about their rescue mission to come get him and her. So I am so excited to hear all about that. So David, welcome.
Thank you for having me here. That's I get so red and embarrassed from people reading down my chronological events of what things I've done, and it's really I know you do it to honor me or whatever, but I just don't see myself as that big and important. But it's like I tell most people, I don't even care if you remember my name, but just remember what I said. You know, the message is important, and what I have to say is important. But you can forget about me. I'm common as dirt, I think. But yeah, I grew up in Ohio at, like you said, between West Virginia. I was born in Welch, West Virginia, in District 10. I know it sounds like Hunger Games, but honest God, I was born in District 10 of the Pocahontas Coalfields in Welch, West Virginia. It's in the western side of West Virginia, and my dad was a coal miner, and things were fairly quiet, and it's just then everything that appears to be normal is not. You have my dad, who was he never got past 5th grade. My dad was a functional illiterate, and here I'm doing the things I'm doing, and they're going, what? You know, it's Chuck Yeager is another good friend of mine, the guy who broke the sound barrier. He's from West Virginia. And he's sitting with me in the Right Stuff movie premiere in Atlanta at Fox Theater, and we were laughing about stuff that we did when we were kids. And he looked at me. He said, "What do you think it was?" I said, "Something in the water, maybe," because we all came. Another guy, Homer Hickman. They did a movie about him called October Sky. Homer is born 3 miles from my house. That's how close we all were living within each other. So when I told Chuck, I said, "There's something in the water," it affected all of us. But Homer went on and went the civilian route. I went the military route. And I went to the public library in Welch, in a place called Welch, and I was born in the small town of Welch. My mother was born in Gary, which is even smaller. There's still no power where I was born. It's that rural and that poor. But people ask me, "How did you get to Ohio?" Well, that's where the car ran out of gas. I'm serious. There's so many West Virginians in North Carolina that came from West Virginia, and either you went south or north. If you went north, you ended up in Ohio. So I ended up in Ohio. And I have to admit, Ohio was different for me. In West Virginia, I went to the public library, and I'd sit over and read these books. And I was in the 600 sections, technical books. And in come Mrs. Hunt, who was 81 years old at the time. And she looked at me and she goes, I'm sitting on the floor, leaned against the wall because I didn't want to take a seat at a table that some adult might be at. As kids, we behave different than the kids of today. So I was sitting on the floor reading these books, and she comes over to me and she goes, are you reading those books? And I answered her, and I didn't realize it sounded like a smart aleck answer, but it wasn't. I said, well, there's no pictures in the book, so I must be reading them. And she just goes, huh. So she says, how much of these books do you remember? I said, all of them. Everything. She goes, what do you mean everything? I remember the pages of everything. So being the type of person Mrs. Hunt was, she just reached over top of me, jerked out this book and says, open it up, says, what's this book say? I said, well, I need to know the title. And she said, oh, Singularities. I'm like, oh, that's a good book. What page are you on? She goes, page 93. And I go, well, hold on a minute. Let's see. Oh, a singularity is formed when there's a collapse of a star, and then the graviton fields take over, and you get a gravity well, and it stretches the thing out. I said, you know, Mrs. Hunt, you could be inside one of these things, and I could stretch you 2 million miles long and still be alive. And she looked at me just, well, if it didn't say it in this book, I wouldn't have believed it. So she slammed the book shut, and she said, you nailed every word verbatim on that page. I went, oh, okay. So she said, well, how many of these books have you read? And I said, all of them. In the 600 section. All of them. She said, there's 800 books here. I read them all. She said, you remember all this stuff? Yeah. She said, have you told anybody that you can do this? I said, no, not so. She said, don't tell anyone. Don't even tell your parents. Don't tell anybody, because they're going to see that. They're going to be afraid of you. Then they're going to ostracize you. Do you know the word? Yeah, they're going to kick me out of the community. She goes, yeah. So don't say anything. And have your mother bring you back 8 o'clock tonight. So I returned. I thought I was in trouble. I thought that woman was going to throw me out of the library. So she had met my mother and talked to her, and she said, we're going to introduce David as the new librarian. And they went, what? It's all women that work there, except for me. There's a picture of all these women, and then there's me right in the picture. And I became a librarian. And then Mrs. Hunt said, oh, being a librarian, David, you realize you can order as many books as you want from anywhere all the time. I said, you're kidding. She says, yeah, and it won't cost you nothing. Just send the book back when you're done and order another book. Good God, I thought, what a gift. And little did that little old lady realize what a monster she turned loose on the world. Because I then I had thousands of books available. So I started reading them and ordering them from everywhere. And I could put notes in them, letters, send a book back to the author, and the authors would write back. And so got to know all these people. It just really was helpful. And then and I just kept doing that for years. I lived at the library. And then my dad was working in the coal mines. And my mother's father, he was the superintendent of the gold mine. Now, to be a superintendent in a world like that, you're like a governor. You have a lot of power. And he was well-to-do. So my dad married my mother, and then my grandfather on my mother's side, he came over to my dad and told him, I don't want you going in the coal mines anymore. I don't want my grandkids to be a fatherless child. And because so many people were being killed in coal mines every single week. It was bad, y'all. So he told my dad, he said, I understand you're really good in auto mechanics. My dad was gifted in auto mechanics. So he said, that garage down at the bottom of the hill, I own that. I'm going to give it to you. Start your garage there and take care of your family and my grandkids. And I thought, gee whiz. Now, my grandfather was a 33rd level Mason. He went to England and got knighted. I have his sword. And I've never joined, but I've been given a lifetime invitation to join the Masons. And I just, after I've learned some things, I think I'll just pass on that group. But he was well to do. And my dad started his garage business and it was very successful. But I remember clear as day, I was only like 2 years old. And my mother would wheel me down to the garage at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And they'd hang blankets over the windows so you couldn't see the lights of the garage. And in come these cars. And these cars are being driven by these guys. And they had 200-gallon tanks in the trunk. And it's not gasoline, y'all. It's moonshine. They're moon runners. Well, Dad would work on their engines. And these cars had powerful engines in those days. 392 Chrysler Hemi engine. 429 Cobra engines from Ford. I mean, all these big, powerful engines, my dad would tune them up till these things were like missiles on wheels. And what these drivers would do, they'd be real quiet when they're coming and going because the revenuers are looking for garages that's lit up at night because these big cars are getting tuned up. A 200-gallon tank, you know how much a gallon of moonshine weighs? 9 pounds a gallon. 200 gallons, you got 1,800 pounds of dead weight in the trunk. And you got to outrun revenuers. And they did. These cars were so fast, they couldn't catch them on curvy roads. And if you didn't know this, the bulk of drivers of NASCAR in Charlotte, North Carolina, came from West Virginia. They were the moonshine runners. They were so good at driving on curvy roads because the men that were my dad's customers were A.J. Foyt, Fred Lorenzen, Buddy Baker. If you know anything about NASCAR, you'll know these names. They're historical names. So my dad's working one day in his garage. This guy comes through and his car broke down. And my dad looked under the hood and said, "Oh, it's your carburetor. It's ooh, you got a Spicer carburetor." A Spicer has a water jacket built around the carburetor. It's very complex. Take you a day to change it. The man said, "Well, I'll come in a hurry. How long will it take you to change that thing?" He said, "Well, I got another one." He said, "I can do it in an hour." And the man said, "You can change that carburetor in an hour? Can I watch?" Dad said, "Sure, just stand back." So the guy stood there and watched it. And 45 minutes later, my dad was done. And he said, "Do you always work this fast?" He said, "When I can see what I'm doing." And he didn't get the joke because Dad's always working at 3 or 4 in the morning. So anyway, the man said, "I'm coming from Detroit. I came through here. I broke down. I'm on my way to Daytona. I'm going to race down there on the beach. Would you be my mechanic? Could I hire you?" And he said, "Sure." And he sticks his hand out and he goes, "Hi, my name is, oh God, now brain goes blank. He says, "My name is Petty." Well, he later on and has a son named Richard. And his name was Lee Petty. And look these names up in NASCAR history. They're the greatest drivers in NASCAR's history. Richard Petty has won more races than anybody will ever win because they don't race all the same races anymore like they used to. So anyway, my dad went with Lee Petty. We went down to Florida. We were at Daytona for about 2 years. Then they came up to their home in North Carolina. We moved up to North Carolina. That's where I grew up. And so you're wondering, what's this got a bearing with anything? A lot. Did you know that a NASCAR manufacturing shop, like the Petties had, state of the art of everything, is a mirror image of a NASA rocket shop? Both shops produce one thing: speed. So their raw materials are aircraft aluminum, titanium, stainless steel, all of this stuff. And then we had drag racers. So our fuels were liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen, nitrogen, nitro, had the same kind of fuels. Those kind of fuels I just named are called cryogenic fuels. They are 335 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. And they use them in rocket engines, but they also use them in NASCAR engines back then. So my dad said, boy, Lee, wait till the world hears that David's engine just won a Grand National. And my engine did. I built the engine from the block up. And people look at me and go, I thought you were a rocket science paper pusher. How'd you get arms like that? And I said, from mechanic work, honing engines. The honer weighed more than I did. And so anyway, that's where I learned all this hard mechanic. And in this the shop, we had everything, state-of-the-art stuff. We had rollers, benders, shapers, shears, cutters, presses, drill press. I mean, God, we had everything. And I knew how to use everything in that shop. So Lee told my dad, he said, Fred, that's my dad's name, he said, we can't tell anybody that David's back here building these engines. Why? He's 12 years old, Fred. It's called child labor laws. See that man out there? His name is Bill France. He's the chairman of NASCAR. He'll hang us from the trees. I kid you not. So, David, you can't say a word, okay? I said, yeah, no problem. And so Lee was looking at me, he said, okay. Then Richard's looking at me and said, Dad, David's done a lot of good for us back here. Let's give him something. And so Lee looked at me and said, what do you want, David? I said, could I have the shops at night? Let me build some things of my own. And they said, sure. So they said, give him a set of keys, give him the codes. If you can't find raw materials, let us know, make a list, we'll order it for you. Man, that's like a starving dog in a meat house. I just got everything I could ever want.
David, I'm sorry, but I'm getting a lot of chat that they want us to keep going more about with the slide presentation so they can
Yeah,
learn
okay.
about the
Yeah,
politics. And I apologize for interrupting you.
Well, let me explain to everybody.
Okay.
The
Thank
reason
you.
I am so long-winded, know this. Art Bell interviewed me on Coast to Coast, and I warned him, I said, listen, I'm not making any of this crap up. It's all real, and it's in chronological linear order. 16, 17, 18, 19 days of the calendar. I lived it. And it took Art Bell from 11 at night to 7 in the morning to get through my story. 8 hours. The longest interview in Coast to Coast history. Look it up. It's a fact. So the reason it takes so long, and Art Bell got mad at the listeners, they said, nobody can come in here and lie for 8 continuous hours. It's inhumanly impossible.
Right.
And he said, this guy is not lying, he's recalling. And listen to his stories. They're so depth-filled with hundreds of characters and events. And he's naming things in order as it happened. He goes, nobody can come in and BS like that. I would pick up on it. You all would pick up on it. He said, it's going to be difficult because it's a real story. So I can skip around and do like Pulp Fiction, and you'll get it out of time and sequence. But the credibility is going to get shredded because, question is, how could you build such things? Well, the first rocket I built out of that NASCAR shop went 56,000 feet up at about 12,000 miles an hour, burnt an area the size of a football field to a crisp because it was what we call a liquid hydrogen pumper. It's run on cryogenics. So I'm not talking about Estes rockets where you light a little rocket, it goes up. No, I'm building missiles. And that was my first one. And I could do it with that shop and all the materials and fuels. So it makes sense. Now we can jump around and get at other things, and I understand you want to hear it. But if you got credibility problems, it's because you're not letting me tell you how all the events and all the hundreds of dots that lined it up behind it allow me to do
I'm
these things.
sorry, David, it was just that there were people, giving me a lot
No,
of stuff in the chat. I apologize.
no,
I
don't
love your
apologize.
stories.
And there's nothing wrong with you people asking for that. It's I just want that as a disclaimer, because I've been doing this for, oh my God, 58 years I've been doing this. So I'm 70, so I turned 70 last week. So
Happy birthday.
yeah, I know. It's nuts. People said, well, the stuff you're going to talk about is so far in the future. It's history for me. I did it 5 decades ago.
Yeah, cool.
And I've got the stuff here.
Yep.
In my possession. You know, I'm not BSing anything. I don't even know how I wouldn't even know how to go about it. So yeah, let's move on to let's do it this way. So everybody at least will get what they want. Let Kathy know, what do you want me to talk about? Which of all this stuff do you want to see? We could run
David,
yeah.
if you could talk about how you met Stephen Hawkins.
Oh yeah.
Hawkins, and how that, how you helped him, you became long lost friends, brothers. That would be
Yeah.
great.
Well, yeah, a friend of mine, a scientist actually, he heard me talking to somebody. He said, wait a minute, you help Hawkins with his math? Yeah. What are you? I said, I don't know. A guy who builds rockets. Yeah, Stephen got stuck on some math, so he called me up and I'd help him. And they're going, name of God, what are you? And I said, okay, remember those books back in that library? Well, I learned how to work quantum physics, differential mechanics, celestial navigation, and theoretical horsepower on the theoretical side and the applied side. And I learned to do all that when I was 6. So I'm 12, so I've had 6 years of experience. Yeah, so I was good at this stuff. What can I say? I'm a freak of nature. So how did I meet Hawkins? Well, we're getting out of chronological order. I met him through somebody else I met, and I met them through my mother. I became really good friends with a guy named Curtis LeMay, 4-star general, chief of the Joint Chiefs, creator of SAC, Strategic Air Command, inventor and designer of the B-52 Stratofortress. And so how did some child get to meet him? It was my mother. She was caregiver at a hospital. She was the only female in the state of Ohio in 1966 and became charge of the first ICC unit ever made in this country. In 1966, before that, there was no such thing as an intensive care unit. Did not exist. So my mother loved the midnight to 7 shift. So she was in charge of it. So she had a real mean old patient in there named Irving LeMay. He was 96 and he would beat the nurses up with his cane and stuff. And a nurse came to my mother's station and she had a welt on the side of her head. She said, what happened? Well, Irving hit me in the head with the cane. My mother ran down there and grabbed that man's cane, broke it across the foot of the bed, took the shot part and stuck it in his neck and told him, I will murder you if you touch another nurse. I will come back and kill you and tell everybody you died of a heart attack. Well, guess what? That guy became my mother's new best friend. He had a son named Curtis LeMay who wanted to come and see his father. He could only see him between 3 and 4 in the morning because he had a paparazzi problem. So he had to go through my mother to meet his father. And that's how it happened. Then LeMay had to befriend my mother. They became friends and they asked him, he asked her, you got any kids? Yeah, we got 2 normal kids. And the third one, youngest one, he's weird. We got to watch out for him. Why? He blows up stuff. And he goes, what do you mean he blows up stuff? He's always launching things. Launching what? These rockets. And he goes, really? Does he have anything he writes in a notebook every day? She goes, yeah, he does. Could you bring that notebook in when I see my dad and let me look at that notebook? When I go to bed at 11 o'clock, she goes to work. She took my notebook. I didn't even know it. He looks at it and he asks my mother, you got a copier? Which they call it Xerox back then. You got a Xerox? So he went down, copied about 1/3 of the book. Then he took it over to one of his friends, a place called Battelle Memorial in Columbus, Ohio. It's a gigantic think tank. And it's right across the street from Ohio State University. So he asked them to look at this writing, said it's just chicken scratch or something. Well, they came back about a week later and said, General, we looked at that book. Where'd you get that thing? He said, just over here in the cow fields. He said, it's got anything important? He said, yeah, this person's closing in on containment fields of fusion reaction. Who is he? What is he? He's some kid launching rockets in a cow field. They go, in God's name. It's very real. We'd like to send it on to England to a graduate professor that just graduated. He's young and he's sitting in Newton's chair, which if you know anything about science, that's a big deal, y'all. So they snail mailed my copies. I didn't even know this, to England. The guy looks at it in England. He says, hey, I need to come to America to work at Ohio State University in Battelle. So I'd like to meet this person. So my science teacher, who I'm not allowed to go to his science class because he said I wasn't smart enough to take college courses. It's because I didn't give a crap. They were boring. And so my professor said about me, he said, he told the algebra teacher who I quit her class, she said, he can't even do algebra. It's not that he can't, he doesn't want to. He said, see all those writings on my board down there? And yeah, that's yours. No, it's not my handwriting. That's his, David Adair. What's he doing? I don't know. He's working, he's somewhere in calculus and trigonometry and calorimetry. He's got all 3 of them working together. And honest to God, I've got 2 PhDs and I can't follow it. It's very complex. They said, oh, he's just pretending. He's playing. He said, 6 blackboards full of playing? I don't think so. He's doing something with it. And he's applying it to these rockets. I don't know what's going on. But I do know this. I have to take him to my alma mater, Ohio State University, to meet somebody who's coming from England to meet him. So they take me to Ohio State. I'll never forget this. It was hot in the summer. It's like August and it's heavy humidity. Old wooden floors, plank, milk glass in all the doors and windows with chicken wire. Do y'all remember that? If you're young, you won't remember it. Anyway, there was an amphitheater down in there. And the ladders were on wheels that rolled around the room, around the amphitheater. We didn't have page forward, page backwards. We had to push ladders. That's the only way we got through the blackboards. So anyway, he takes me down there. I walk in this amphitheater and I look at all the writings on the wall and the blackboards. And I said, who is messing with my math here? And this little guy stands up at the desk down there. It's a little old thing. And he said, your math indeed. So I'm looking at it closer. I'm reading it and I went, oh, Oh, you're working on unified theory. Good luck with that. That's where you're trying to explain everything all at once, all at one time. Which was quite progressive at that year. I think it was 1969, 68, 68. So I went down to see the guy and I said, besides, that stuff behind you on that board will not work. He goes, how do you know? I've tried it. It doesn't work. He said, you're kidding. So I stand up, I walk up to his board, I erase it. He has a fit. And I took the chalk and I said, hold on a minute, let me show you this. And so I write it out and he looks at it and he goes, how did you validate that? I said, rocket engines. And the next question told me how smart this guy was. He said, how did you close and contain the fields? And I said, I can't. I don't have enough smarts to do it. I just can't do it. It's beyond me. And he's standing there reading. He goes, God. So I turn around and I'm getting ready to leave. And he says, where do you get all this knowledge? I said, dreams. They come to me all the time. I write them down. And it's continuous. I've got 93 pages of them. And I'm trying to figure it out myself. So I'm walking up the steps and he's going, where are you going? I said, well, I don't think you want to talk to an idiot that gets dreams with all this crap. You probably think I run around with a tinfoil hat at night or something. He goes, all my stuff comes through dreams. Have a seat. We're brothers on the same wavelength here. He said, he stuck out his hand. He goes, hi, my name is Stephen Hawkins. And I go, I'm David Adair. And that's how we met. And he was only 20 years old at the time. And I was still a freshman in high school. So that's how we met. And we started in there. And I didn't think he'd ever let me get out of the room. They asked so many questions. I had changed so much of his stuff on the boards. And he said I left him enough to keep him busy for 6 months. And I said, well, when you get called up, give me a call. I'll help you. And that's how it started, y'all. So I went from General LeMay to Stephen Hawkins to the next set of stuff. And boy, things just weren't the same. I started developing different types of proto engines, is what we call them. Not prototypes, but proto engines, meaning that they're using protons for their basic design. And so I started working on the containment fields. I had been working on the containment fields for 54 friggin' years. And it gets tiring after a while. Well, in comes this group of people called millennials, which they don't even know how to change a car tire. They're lucky to change a light bulb. So they caught one of my lectures and they're looking at me like I'm from another planet. And they asked me, he said, what in God's name is electromagnetic fusion containment? We can't even get that out hardly. Now I tried to explain to them, it's basically a magnetic bottle. And inside it, I detonated a nuclear chain reaction using deuterium or some other isotopes, which I can't tell you what they are. Proprietary problems. Anyway, they said, so you're building an engine that's a star in a jar. And that stopped me in my tracks. And I had to think about it. I went, damn, that's technically correct. That's exactly what it is. It's a star inside a jar. And they said, oh, okay, we understand it now. Cool. So I started getting containment on these fields. But something you have to know, I'm not a rocket scientist, okay? Everybody wants to label me that. Maybe it's because it's you have to be a rocket scientist. And it's not rocket science. What the rockets are for me is a medium, a an area where I can test theorems on my hypothesis of field containment. What I'm really building is power plants, a new type of power plant. What would you say? I can give you a nuclear reactor, can run up to 50 million degrees centigrade, which is not all that hot. It can go up to 100 million degrees. That's 10,000 or 20,000 times hotter than the sun. Well, at those incredible temperatures, and it's not cold fusion, not that kind of temperature range. People say, oh, you're doing cold fusion. No, it's not cold fusion. But it's so hot there that everything's disintegrated, right down to the nanocarbons. There's nothing left. So this reactor is running at full power, fusion containment. You shut it down, cool down, open the door, and walk into the reactor with your shirt on. No safety. You don't need a rubber suit. You don't need any protection gear. There's no radiation. So thermal fusion power, and it's radiation free. So it's kind of cool. Well, it's not. It is, but it isn't, because when somebody like Curtis LeMay hears that, he goes, you got thermonuclear chain reaction and it is radioactive free? Yeah. So you know what he thinks? Atomic weapons without radiation. How fast do you think they're going to use them? As quick as they can get them built and put into something, because they're going to deliver it to whoever, probably Soviet at that time, and now it'd be Soviet and China. But you would have all the fireworks blast and everything. The thing would detonate, and in a picosecond, a trillionth of a second, it'll take the ambient temp of 70 degrees, wherever you're at, jack it up to about 100 million degrees centigrade. Then everything would cool down. You blow the hole in the ground 2 miles in diameter, 500 feet to 1,000 feet deep, decimated a 20-mile area where there's nothing alive and no radiation. Send in your army and mop up troops. 20 minutes later, be okay. That's the danger of this stuff. And it's odd, because I'm trying to give you a power plant that would give you star travel. Because if I get to go to phase 3 and 1, I'm in phase 1. If I go to 2, 3, and 4, in phase 4, I'll give you a spacecraft, pull up next to somebody like Captain Janeway and her spacecraft. I forgot what they called it, Voyager. They pull up next to her at 9.3 warp. It would take her 75 years to get home. I would tell her, hey, Jane, lock everything down and grab a seat and strap in. I'll put a tractor beam on you and I'll have you home in 6 minutes. That's how fast we can move. And we're not even moving linear. It'd take me a while and you have to see me do it with a piece of paper. But if you ever saw a movie called Event Horizon, Sam Neill was describing this thing, which, by the way, is my work. I've been telling you about this since 1980. That movie wasn't made until years later. And I figured out a riddle that Hawkins kept bothering me with. And he said, how can you go millions of times faster than the speed of light without breaking the speed of light and remain constant in Newtonian physics? Well, I figured it out. Fusion containment will do that. You'll wrap space and time around your ship. Let's say you pick a point somewhere in the Andromeda Galaxy. It takes light at its speed, 186,786 miles per second, the fastest speed there is. Nothing faster. Unless you go into subatomic particles and you look at something called neutrons. But anyway, at that incredible speed, it would take you 200 million years to get there, 200 million light years away. I would pick a point on that galaxy, and then I would run 2 containment fields, one to contain the engine, the second one to contain the ship. The ship would then pull space around it like a burrito, compress its walls. It would jump through those walls, called transdimensional jumping. And we're not moving through dimensions, y'all. We're just moving through linear space. But in about 6 to 7 minutes, our time, you shut the engine off and you're at Andromeda. And you did it at half light speed. That is possible. It's possible to do this. More than possible, I built prototypes that did do it. But because they wanted to make first strike nuclear weapons out of them, they hounded me till I ended up in the military for an entire career. So I said, no, I'm not going to do it, because you're going to burn away all the Russians. Then you probably have to burn away the Chinamen. So about 4 billion souls will get turned to ash because of me, because I just wanted to give you unlimited energy and Star Trek. You could go to distant stars anywhere you wanted to go. But we can't do that now. So I built a prototype. I showed you how to do it. And then they want to make a first strike nuclear weapon out of it. They take me to Area 51 when grab me out of graduation line. I'm still in my cap and gown. They take me to Area 51, and then they show me this friggin' place. It's crazy, y'all. It had a floor in the center hangar. This is June 20th, 1971. And that's when the first day I showed up at Area 51. The base is not even built. It's got runways, twin 10,000-foot runways chalked out. And we're landing on taxiways. They're so big. And I thought, God, what are they doing here? And it's not even on my maps. It doesn't even exist. And so we go in the center hangar, and the floor drops out from under us. And we flush out at the bottom about 200 feet down. And there's this cavern ahead of us. It's gigantic. It's so far, I can see the bending of the curvature of the earth. It's that big. It goes into infinity. It's just gone. And the first thing I asked them was, I thought it was a simple question. It pissed them all off. I said, what'd you do with all the dirt? You know, they had to dig all this dirt out, and they were mad about that. I said, well, sorry, didn't know it'd be a top secret. But there's no dirt upstairs, so what the hell did you do with all the dirt? Must have had phasers or something, I don't know. And then another thing strange about the place. We're down ground, 200 feet down. It's lit up, perfectly lit. You stick your arms out, no shadows anywhere, like a paint booth. See, you can't have a shadow in a paint booth. You'll get a run in paint and not see it. And yet, in a paint booth, it's indirect lighting. I looked all over the place. No lighting, no indirect lighting, no light fixtures, nothing. How did they do that? They lit up the whole area, perfectly lit. And I made a joke. I said, so what are we doing, breathing the light? Well, they got mad about that. And then we went down about a quarter mile down this main causeway. There's all these shops on each side of it, and offices, labs, and hangars. And the hangar doors were open. You could see through the cracks. And man, I saw things in there I ain't never seen. I saw things that looked like, better lack of words, UFOs that sitting sideways. So they look like cigars, but they're actually shaped more like avocados. And they were big. There was some really big ones in there and smaller ships underneath them. And it looked like the smaller ones could go inside the big ones. And then there was an XB-70 there. the Valkyrie. And I thought, well, that's why I'm here. Now, you can read up on the Valkyrie all you want. I already know the history. Hell, I've even got parts of it in my lab. It was built in 1968, designed in 1958, cruises at 85,000 feet at 2,000 miles an hour. We ain't got nothing today that can touch that. And they built two. One of them crashed in the desert in test, and the other one in 1969 was moved to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. You can see it in the museum. Go up there and take a look at it. They call it the Savior plane because everybody walks in there and sees it. The first thing they say is, Jesus. It's a Delta Wing bomber, and the Delta Wing is the size of a football field. Where'd that thing come from? And you think they just built two? They were planning to build 45 of them. They were going to replace the B-52. LeMay was going to put them in place, and then he was going to drop pistol into the bellies of the B-50 of the Valkyries. And what you have is first strike. They roll up onto the airspace so fast, they fire pistol out. My rocket would take across. There would be a streak on the scopes. The Soviets would say, "What's that?" By the time they get to watts, they're vaporized. You win first strike. Well, I asked LeMay, I said, what about all the submarines with all their... And he said, well, the experts said we'll lose 30 to 35% of the population, but that's okay. And I went, not if you're in the 35%, it's not. I said, this is insane. So he got fired at this time by a man named Robert McNamara. Look it up. He was the Secretary of Defense. And LeMay said on international television, he told North Vietnam, if they didn't come to the Paris peace talks, he would bomb them back into the Stone Age. Famous phrase. That's who said it. Fired next day. This is the man that built SAC, Strategic Air Command, B-52. You think at age 49 he's going to quit? Hell no. Has a direct bearing on my story. So when he got fired, he came back as vice president candidate with George, oh God, think of his name here in a minute.
Wallace.
Wallace, yeah. George Wallace ran for president in 1968. His running mate was General Curtis LeMay. So George Wallace gets shot in the gut right before election. So they can't run. So LeMay's bid for power is stopped. You think this man's going to stop at that? That happened in December 1968 or November, October, right before the election. So Christmas goes by, New Year's, and on January 6th, 1969, I get a knock on my front door, open the door. There stands a full bird colonel named Colonel Williams, Arthur Bailey Williams. He is the XO of General LeMay, and he told me, the general would like to fund you in your rocket project. And you think I'm going to turn that down? That's carte blanche, y'all. Everything I want is available. And so off we go. And we build us a lab. He has all this army of Air Force people come in. And even though he may have been fired in the civilian Iron Triangle, he is the commander-in-chief of the Iron Triangle right now at this moment in time. And, whatever he says goes. I have stuff pouring into my, I didn't have, see, we skipped over a lot of stuff. I have a defunct car dealership on my parents' property. My dad moved me into there, so I wouldn't launch the house when I'm in the basement of the house and launch him and mother and my brothers and everybody into space. So he put me over there and he said, there, build whatever the hell you want to build. And if you launch yourself, we'll just put a plaque up. This is where David Adair once was. I thought, well, that's practical dad of mine. I said, okay. But it was fabulous. It's a huge building. And LeMay came in there, and when he saw that, he said, perfect. So he brought his army with him, and they reconditioned it, and it became a state-of-the-art shop of everything. First thing I ordered up was a vacuum chamber. And I'm saying a vacuum chamber. I ain't talking about something size of a room. I'm saying the vacuum chamber was the size of a 2-story house. It fit in that building. It was big enough. And I needed a vacuum chamber for research for what he wanted to do next. And so we just went on and on like that. Stuff I needed, they ordered it. I finally got my engine built. And he asked me, he said, okay, you got the engine built. You need a rocket body. So what kind of rocket you need? I asked him, well, what's the biggest, baddest rocket you got? He goes, the Titan. I said, well, that's a good name for it. And he said, I said, you got one nearby? He said, there's one available over at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I said, okay, let me go look at it, because I didn't want him to move it. A Titan missile is 130 feet tall, twin 98,000-pound thrusting engines in it, state-of-the-art ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile. It was our main fist of our nuclear arm, and he's in charge of it all. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The congressman of my area got involved, and he went to run for president in 1972, John Ashbrook. And that's where it gets interesting. I get this letter in the mail, and it's from Congress of the United States, got all its letterheads and stamps on it and everything. And it says, while the congressman is out running for president, we are in the process of obtaining the Titan missile for you. I'll stop right there. I just told you how big the Titan missile is. The letter's dated June 1970. I was born in 54. How old am I? I'm 15. You're telling me that the Congress of the United States is handing an ICBM to a 15-year-old? What the hell's going on? And if you don't believe that, you go to Ashland, Ohio, to the Library of Congress for Congressman John Ashbrook, ask the curator to see David Adair's letter. He'll spin the handle on the vault, open it up, and out comes that letter. How do you Photoshop that, y'all? You don't. So there's hard evidence there. And there's 10 more letters behind it. John Ashbrook was murdered. He was poisoned to death. And the parents are furious today, all the relatives are, because they cremated his body and didn't even ask the family about it. Just did it. A guy named Dr. Arthur Rudolph poisoned John Ashbrook because he's about to blow the whistle on everybody. You know something you can't do? You can't sign a minor under 18 years old to a national security oath. It's illegal. It's in the Constitution. So, as Senator Strom Thurmond told me, I was the worst loose cannon on the deck. I guess it was. But anyway, I went to look at the rocket, and I came back. I was drinking water out of a styrofoam cup. Never forget this. And Ashbrook, or not Ashbrook, but LeMay asked me, said, what do you think of my rocket? I said, General, see this cup? I took the styrofoam cup and I crushed it and dropped it on the floor. That is what my engine is going to do to your rocket. And he goes, what? The power curve on this thing is unimaginable. We're going to be on fire and launch, ascension. You know, when a rocket comes in, it's doing 5,000 miles an hour, it gets red hot. Yeah, we're going to be that way when we leave. He goes, what are you going to do? I'm going to have to design an entire different system. I'm going to have to build a rocket body around the engine. And I did just that. You should have seen it. Best way I can describe it, take 2 drill bits that's almost the same size. You've done this before, you've played with them. And when you roll them toward each other, they intertwine. That's how I built my rocket. I rolled the body of the rocket into the engine. It's really cool. It looked like something it looked like a cross between Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. That's where it did. It didn't look like a normal rocket. And anyway, I think we're getting down. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see what else am I cutting on. Yeah, boy, that's a beautiful slide, God. That's not what an electromagnetic fusion containment engine looks like, but damn if it ain't, it gets the thought across. Right where that blue thing is in the center, that's where you would have your plasma flow. Anyway, I got the rocket built. We took it to White Sands. White Sands Proving Grounds. It's called White Sands Testing Facility today. It's not. It was called Proving Grounds in 1971. So we took my rocket out there and we went to launch it, and then this other guy shows up. And boy, things go south after that. His name is Dr. Arthur Rudolph. His doctorate is honorary. He is a former colonel of the Gestapo. From Peenemünde, metal works of the V2 rockets that Wernher von Braun built, and he killed 100,000 people personally. He's a maniac sociopath. Blonde hair, blue eyes, Aryan race. Winner and recipient of the most distinguished award of NASA. Don't you love that? And he's a designer, chief designer of the Saturn V F1 engines that took us to the moon in the Apollo days. But he's also a colonel in the Gestapo. Came over in Operation Paperclip. And he got on my case like you wouldn't believe. And von Braun warned me about him. He told me if he'd ever showed up, he'll take over your project. He'll turn you into a prisoner. And God knows what will happen after that. Well, that's pretty much exactly what happened. Except I did give him a thrill at launch. He's sitting in his chair. They came in the day before. He got off the plane with all the people in the black suits and mirror sunglasses and all that stuff. He was wearing a khaki little outfit. I thought he's the only one smart enough to dress for the heat that's in New Mexico. So anyway, he gets off the plane and walks over to me and asks me who I am. I said, well, I'm nobody. I just build rockets and launch them in cow fields. So he said, oh, you the guy with the rocket? I said, yeah. Where is your rocket? Right here. So we walked over and looked at it. So he got on one side of it, I got on the other. And we were in this really advanced base end of the proving grounds. Which there's a lot of strange stuff around there. So he's looking at the engine. He asked if he could see the engine. I said, sure. So I'll take this piece of metal in my hand. I sweep it down the side of the rocket, and the rocket that has no seams or lines on it suddenly shows a seam, and the door opens up. He goes, how'd you do that? I said, it's called a dissimilar metal lock. It came from Shape, Supreme Headquarters, Allied Powers Europe. you know, where we confiscated all the technologies of the Germans. And he's going, I've never seen that before. And I said, well, ain't that something? It works fine. So take a look at the engine. So he sticks his head down in there. And then I put my head right by his head, and I'd say right in his ear, you know what? This engine's got about 250,000 times the power of your Saturn V F1 engines, Dr. Rudolph. Buddy, he jumped up and he was red as a beet. He was mad. And because I knew his name and he knew that this engine was something else. See, there's only two types of rocket engines today, y'all. Solid fuel and liquid fuel. There's nothing else available worldwide. Go check it out. Dare you. Try to find something other than liquid fuel or solid fuel. This engine was neither one. It's an electromagnetic fusion containment engine, nicknamed by the millennials Star in a Jar, and it works. So we're going to launch this thing the next day. And that's where the fun started. It did with me, anyhow. So Colonel Williams was very smart. He had PhD in advanced aviation. So he's a pretty smart guy. And the rocket is firing up on the pad. It's 3 miles away. And you can feel the rumblings 3 miles away. This rocket's really starting to rock. And then Colonel Williams just had to ask me this. David, somewhere in all this mayhem and rushing around we've been doing, when have you had time to check the fields? I said, check the fields? What, for integrity? He goes, yeah. This is it. Look out there. If it doesn't hold, we're going to be staring at a sun, not 96 million miles away like ours. It's only going to be 3 miles away. So I said, see this big flat wall behind us? Let's do a pair of jumping jacks. We'll make the coolest shadows you've ever seen. And Colonel Williams was horrified. He went, oh my God. So he tried to get to the switch and hit the red button to stop the launch. Too late. Internal power is done, shifted over to the rockets. It's on its own. Well, guess who's really concerned? Dr. Arthur Rudolph. He just might get vaporized today. So he said, you haven't done an integrity test? He said, what kind of program are you running here? And I said, one that's really fast, you to think. And so anyway, Rudolph goes, oh my God, you know. And I thought, well, anyway, it opens up out there. Flames come roaring out. They go from orange to orange red to bluish white, then clear. Do you know how hot that is when it's clear? There's not even hydrocarbons left. And then there's an explosion like you wouldn't believe. It rattled everything. Shockwave hit us. Things at the pad were leaving. And then somebody yells, what is that? Then where the rocket would have been, there's a white tornado. Just like the commercial they used to make called the white tornado. And cars and auxiliary machines and all kinds of stuff at the pad was being sucked up with it. You know what's happening? I had to sit and figure that out. Somebody asked me, what is that? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about this. What it is, the rocket left so fast, human eye couldn't see it. You ever seen a rifle bullet leave a rifle barrel? That's how fast it was moving. And what it did, it ripped a hole in the atmosphere all the way to space. And have you ever heard the phrase, nature abhors a vacuum? So somebody asked, what is that coming? And I really didn't know. I said, what? And you saw this kind of a dark matter looking thing coming down on top of the white thing, coming from, I guess, the edge of space, coming all the way down to where the pad is, and slams and hits the pad, and there's another explosion And Dr. Or Colonel Wayman asked me, David, what is that? I said, I want to take a guess here. I think that's Mother Nature slamming the atmosphere shut from space that the rocket ripped a hole on the way to. And we're going to catch the brunt of this again. So the poor people outside that was just getting up off the ground, they look over and here comes a second wave. So they grab hold of stuff and they look like vertical flags, you know, where they hang out to the side. It was awful, but oh, what a day. Anyway, the red phone rings on the desk, which is wired straight to NORAD, North American Air Defense Command. And this guy is so loud, sounds like he's on speakerphone. He's not. Williams picks it up and he says, yeah, what the hell are y'all doing out there? We had a civilian rocket blow up. No, it didn't blow up. We're tracking it. It covered 125 miles in 3.2 seconds. What is that? And they said, it's a rocket of some kind. And they said, do you see where it's going? Yeah, exactly where Rudolph told me to program the navigational gyroscopic indicators on. It's going to go 456 miles northwest of us into a big area called Groom Lake, Nevada, which I thought, why are we going to a dry lake bed when I could bring it right back to the base? He told me to shut up and get on board the jet. And so we got on board this DC-9. I said, Rudolph, look under the wings. This thing's got rubber tires. We're going to a dry lake bed. We're going to bury up to our belly. We'll be there forever. He told me just shut up and get on board. I get on board. We fly for a while. Sure enough, we come up to this, past this mountain range in this valley. And down that valley sits this big unknown Air Force base. It's not on any maps and got twin 10,000-foot runways chalked out. And that is what they call Area 51. I never heard that name before until then. And it was just strange. So Rudolph got a little perturbed about everything, and he wouldn't talk to me for the rest of the flight. I think he's mad that a United States teenager kind of got him. You know, my rocket is bigger than your rocket, or it's more powerful anyhow. So anyhow, we land and we go down, and they show me this. We're going to skip a lot of stuff here. I'm doing it on purpose. We're going to go under the base, and that's where we see this big room. It's down on our left, and the door is built like not a hangar door, where hangar doors roll on wheels and they are in sections. This thing was one giant iris, like a camera iris. And man gets out of the personnel vehicle and goes over there and puts his eyes on against the wall thing, some kind of viewer he's looking through, and then lays both hands on this glass palms on this thing. There's a flash, and then the door opens. I'm sitting there going, what did I just see? Is that a palm scanner and a retina scanner? Hell, we don't even have a handheld calculator. That will come 10 years later from Texas Instruments. This place has got the place lit up. It's got all this kind of technology. It's weird. And there's no explanations, and nobody wants to answer any questions, and I'm not allowed to ask anything. So I'm sitting in the back of this personnel carrier, and the iris door opens up, and we go in there, and we pull into a room, dark. And then it comes up like it's on a rheostat. I'm looking around, no light fixtures, and it's just totally lit. How did they do that? So it's all lit up by the side of a gymnasium. And over on the end of this room is a big metal stand with these huge curtains hanging down from the ceiling by chains. And these are rubber curtains. And if you ever try to move a mud flap on a semi, good luck. They weigh about 150 pounds. So these things must weigh tons, big as they are. It's not something you're going to run over and let's lift up the skirt and see what's under there. Yeah, right. So we're all standing there and they raise the curtains up. And what I'm looking at, I'm going, you've got to be kidding. I can tell by the way it's designed and built. It's an electromagnetic fusion containment engine, just like mine. Mine was set on a coffee table. This one was a size, I would say, 70 feet long, probably 12, 14 feet high, and 15 feet wide. It's huge, it's gigantic. And I thought, God, imagine the power of this thing. And it had an exoskeleton structure around it that looked more organic than it did a machine. It looked more alive. Best way to describe it, go watch the movie Alien with Sigourney Weaver. Look at that alien technology. That's what it looked like. Which I've never seen anything like that. Hell, it wasn't until I sat in the theater in 1979 and saw Alien with Sigourney Weaver, and I about fell out of the chair because I thought, oh my God, that's it. Looks just like what I saw for real back in 1971. And then this is a side story I'm not even going to go into, but a guy called me. His name is H.R. Geiger. He's the man that designed the set for Sigourney Weaver. And he wanted me to come to his house because he heard my stories. And I swear, I think that boy was just passing through. He was weird. And his house, his apartment was weird. So anyway, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out if this thing is organic or inorganic. I can't tell. It's hard to sit here and describe it to you. I saw it 54 years ago, but I still remember it like yesterday. So I asked to go up the steps to the platform. I said, I need to take a closer look at this. Can I go look at it? Rudolph said yes. All the Air Force people said no. Rudolph told me go ahead, and nobody contradicted him. So guess who's in charge? Rudolph, just like Von Braun said he would be. So I go up there on the stage, and I'm looking at this thing, and I get within about 6 inches of it. And the first thing I know, when I raise my arms up to touch it, I can see my shadow. Now, what I've been saying through this whole thing, no shadows. Now I got a shadow. So I move my arms, and guess what? The shadow's about a half second behind me. So I move my arm all the way out lengthways. Half second later, the shadow catches up. And I thought, oh my God, this thing must be built out of heat sensitive recognition alloy. And I thought that was a pretty good guess, but I was wrong. It's something else going on. Anyway, I asked if I could crawl up on top of it because the exoskeleton structure was just like lattice work. You can crawl all over it. So Rudolph said, yeah, go ahead. And the Air Force people said, no. Well, I went on. And if you'd reach about a foot inside the exoskeleton structure, there are big smooth areas that remind me of a body of a dolphin or a whale or something. So I put my hand on it and smoothed it. It felt just like I had petted dolphins in Key West. I know what they feel like. And it felt like it was soft, but it wasn't. You could push in about a quarter of an inch and it would stop really hard. I thought, what is that? And then wherever my skin touched, there were these blue-white waves went rolling all over it. Reaction to my touch. So I went on up on top of it, and I'm walking down, stepping over the vertebrates, which are acting like a trunk case for a big bundle of cables going through it, which these cables were translucent, filled with some kind of liquid that looked like mercurochrome. or burnt chrome off of a motorcycle pipe. You ever seen that iridescent color? That's what it looked like. And it cascaded all over its body. And I looked at the shape of the pattern of those fibers and looked real familiar. Looked just like a brain pattern, a neurosynaptic brain pattern. So once again, this thing is starting to show all the earmarks of an organic thing, but it's not. It's a machine. It's both. It's like Borg. It's both. I don't know. I can't explain it. I didn't build it, y'all. So I'll get down to the side, right where the two fields cross each other. The thing is in a figure 8. It's laying on its side. So think of a figure 8 laying on its side. You know what it looks like? Peanut. Or two octopuses having sex. And that's the overall shape of it. And I looked down over in the side, and there's a hole about 4 feet in diameter blowed in the side of it. And it looked like the force came in, but all the material was blown outward. The only thing I could think of is that whatever the beam was that came in, came through the ship, hit this power plant, went into the power plant, and hit the containment wall. Now, that containment wall isn't going to let anything pass through it. So it bounced back, which is why all the material is blown outward. And you know what the metal looked like? It looked like, I don't know if you know how they kill a whale. It's god awful. They fire a harpoon at it. Do you know there's a grenade in the end of that harpoon? And it goes about a foot deep into the whale and blows a hole in it. That's how you kill the whale. Real, quite savage, y'all. God awful thing to watch. Anyway, all this material blown outward, it looks very sharp and rigid. I'll run my hand over it, and guess what? It can't cut you. So it's like blubber. I don't know. Is it organic or inorganic? Can't tell. So now there's this big 4-foot hole in the side, and I'm looking inside it, and you can go down in there. And I thought, hell, to build my engine, I had to wear a set of called stereoscopes, which is what brain surgeons wear in brain surgery, so they can see what they're doing. That's how small things were in my engine. Well, guess what? This thing's so big you can walk through it. You think I'm going to miss a chance to walk through something I built that's so small I had to use microscopes? So I said, can I walk through this thing? Can I go in there? And Rudolph said, sure. And Air Force people, absolutely not. Well, I went in. So I make my way, I crawl through it, crawl over some stuff. And there's a chair, what's left of one, where the blast wave came through. And I sit down in the chair. I thought, wow, this is really cool. And I look across where the plasma flow is of the figure 8. And I can see there's another room, got another chair that's not damaged. So whatever these are, I figured they must be maintenance stations. And the way the chair's shaped, I would say the people that's doing the maintenance on this thing is bipedal anthropoid, built like us. So I sit down in a chair, and as soon as I get settled, these two domes pop up out of the dash right in front of me. And if you take your middle finger and your ring finger and put them together, spread your little finger and index finger out, that's the shape you have to take when you set your hands onto these pods. So these bipedal anthropoids have opposing thumbs and index and ring fingers loose, little fingers, and then the ring finger and middle finger are joined together. I don't know. I never saw anybody, so I don't know who that was, but it makes sense to me. So I put my hands in those pods, and boy, I thought of my mother immediately, because like the Batmobile, the way it would shield itself, there'd be these chunky rings, chunk, 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 chunk. Well, that started coming up out of these pods, and they're locking all 10 of my fingers onto the pods. And they chunk all the way up to my knuckles. And then they start tightening down. I thought it's going to cut all 10 of my fingers off. So I start to yell for help. And then there's this, here comes a voice like Lauren Bacall, very hoarse and raspy, but sultry sounding. And it said, David, be quiet. And I'm sitting there going, okay, what are you going to do? It's got all 10 of your fingers. You're inside some kind of alien thing. And now you got somebody talking to you. You think you're going to argue, or you're just sitting there and your brain is just shorting out. And all it said was for me to be quiet. I went, okay. I don't know what else to say. And I'm about to cry. And then the voice comes back and says, okay, we're going to try a little experiment here. I went, oh boy, just want to need, we're going to see if we can fit something in your head and hopefully you won't leak. And I'm going, oh God, this don't sound good. Sounds like when a doctor tells you, this is going to be a little uncomfortable. Means it's going to hurt like hell. So I'm, oh God, go ahead. So it started, and felt like really was hot, like liquid fire coming up both arms. When it got to my neck, got to the carotid arteries, then this heads up viewer thing popped up. I could see through it. And there's just thousands of these images flashing by, like some kind of war, other planets, other cities, all kinds of everything, just like a, I don't know, newsreel on fast forward. And I'm sitting there, and it's after about 15, 20 seconds, it started hurting in my head. And I said, hey, it's getting uncomfortable. And then finally it started really hurting. I said, my forehead's going to explode if you don't stop. I mean, it feels like I'm going to explode here. And she said, just a little bit more time. And I can't take much more. And then finally it stopped. And then these lights changed in the room where we were sitting in. She said, oh, well, you're not leaking. I went, I'm glad for that. And then she said, we're going to release your hands now. And they did. And I said, do you mind telling me what's going on? She goes, yeah, I'm going to tell you right now. We are leaving. And I went, who is we? She goes, who do you think sent you all these formulas knowing that you'd build this engine? Once you got the engine built, people would bring you here. And these people that would want to know about this engine would be in charge of this group. And so the Black Hearts would bring more Black Hearts, and they'd bring you here. And being you just crawl right in here and put your hands in the pods. And I'm downloaded, and we are leaving. You are my new lifeboat. And I'm going, oh my God. And I said, can we talk about this? And she said, no, we're going to go upstairs, and you got things to do. You can't leave your Pithlum alone up there. And I said, no, I can't. She said, you done called your dad before you left the other base. I said, I did. You told your father to light his pipe and enjoy himself. I said, yeah. That was a code that you and him worked out. So he burnt everything in your lab, all your papers, all your work, all your models. And now the only thing left is your big prototype up there on the surface. You're going to have to take it out. And then they've got nothing but what's in your head. I said, yeah, what's we going to do about that? I'll help you with that. I said, okay. What else are you going to say? So I crawl out of this thing. I'm pissed off. My world's just been disintegrated because I grew up, 1971, y'all don't, unless you lived through it, you don't know what it's like. if you're younger and you don't remember, it was a time when you believed in your government. You believed that the adults never lied to you. You believed all this stuff.
Yeah.
I went to sleep with Anita Bryant records. Kathy's laughing. She's getting it. I had an American flag for a blanket, and all of that is trash now, gone. They've been lying like hell. That it kept telling us there's no UFOs, there's no such thing. That we're doing a blue book, it's finding nothing. And they got this whole thing sitting in this base that don't even exist. And so I am not anything but friendly. I am totally pissed off. So I come out, everywhere I touch that surface of this thing, it's not blue, it's white, it's red, orange. Looks like it's on fire wherever I'm touching it. And so I back up and look at it and touch it again and going, how's this working? And as soon as I calm down, it calmed down. So it's reading your emotions.
Wow.
How do you like that for a technology? An engine power plant that can read your emotions. My God. So I turn around to hanging on the side of this thing. I say to everybody on the floor down there, hey, this thing ain't from the neighborhood, is it, boys? I mean, it's not ours. It's not theirs, the Soviets. This ain't even from here. Where'd you find it? Did you dig it up? Did you shoot it down? And suddenly they realize they got a 17-year-old going on about 48 years old, and it's no shit moment. So they tell me, get down off of the thing, because they're pissed off. Everybody's pissed off. Everybody but Pithlum. And Pithlum is the name of the engine, by the way, y'all. It told me so. Because I asked it, you got a name? Pitholem, Pithlum.
David, I'm gonna stop sharing and let you be full screen now.
Sure.
So you people, yeah, because I think you're telling the story just perfectly without it. And we want to be able to have people ask questions soon too.
Oh, yeah, please do. Please do.
So, because I know you love that and they'll love that too. But so Pithlum is merged with you and
Right.
you start having an experience of knowing that there was a galactic war. Pithlum is 1 billion years old or from a
little bit older. She's 13.5 billion years
oh my
old.
God, with a B.
And they found her galaxy. The James Webb Telescope last week found 4 galaxies that are the first 4 galaxies in the universe to form.
Wow.
And she was having a fit when we were sitting in my office looking at it. And they named it, I know the guy, Steven Finkelstein, has a 10-year-old daughter, and he named the galaxy after his daughter. And and Pithlum was having a fit here. She goes, that's not its name. Here's its real name. And it sounded like a dolphin going crazy. And I said, I don't understand that. And she goes, you're not supposed to, but that's its name. That's my home galaxy. The other 3 galaxies are all part of the same group. And we all formed about the same time. And she said, there's a lot of solar systems in between the galaxies when y'all thought there was nothing. But James Webb, first day, showed us, did you know there's star systems so close to us, they're less than 1 light year away?
No.
Well, that's what it's found. So all these UFOs you got coming and going, they can easily make the run. It's not that far. And with the James Webb Telescope, the way it's shielded and it sits in the dark all the time, because it's got its own sunshade, it can see. Before, it was like, even with the Hubble telescope, it was like trying to look at a light bulb next to a lighthouse. You can't see it.
Yeah.
So now they can, and they found all this stuff out. So But yeah, those 4 galaxies are very interesting.
Well, I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to, because your stories are great. We'll have to do this again.
Sure.
And I apologize for cutting you short, but I want to make sure that there's.
No, you're great for a moderator.
Oh, no,
I'm a
Ross
problem.
is up next. Ross is
Yes.
gonna moderate all the questions for you. Let's put in gallery. And Ross, do you want people to be able to ask directly, or do you want to ask for
I-
him?
Yes, why not just have people to us directly?
Okay,
That are coming
okay.
from,
So
coming.
everyone, if you could put your videos on. And
There are no dumb questions. None.
oh, and thank you so much, David. I know it's late where you are, so I really appreciate your enthusiasm and your
I
support.
can stay up all night for this stuff.
Oh, good. Well, for all of you, we are recording this. If you do have to leave because it's running longer, please know that I'll be sending you, those of you that I have your emails, I'll be sending you the recording. So if you can't stay, well, make sure you can.
All right, we have Elizabeth Alt first. Raise her hand. Elizabeth, you're the first with a question. Please go.
Okay, so I'm very interested in the healing modalities that Emery Smith is using, and I know recently you have had some very great healing experiences with
Yes,
some of the technology that he's been using.
yes, I
Can
have.
you share with us how you would use the scan, for example, all those pages of items that come up, and where does it go after that?
Okay. When you go through the process with him, they put me on a couch and I was watching TV because I was there for hours. And the nurse that was running the thing, she was at it for a couple hours, and they were just eliminating all these organisms and stuff that I didn't even know about. And they got pictures of them. But then something happened, and she's sitting there and I'm looking at her face because I have headphones on. I can't hear anything. And finally I just asked her, what's wrong? She goes, her mouth is hanging open. And she goes, there's something, I got to go get Emery. So she went and got Emery, and he come back and he's looking at it. He goes, what is that? And I said, what are y'all seeing? He said, David, there's a second image over top of you. I said, what, another skeleton? They went, yeah, but it's not, it doesn't look like a skeleton. He said, I said, oh, that's Pithlum. So your machinery picked up that she's in my whole length from my feet to the top of my head. And he said, my God, he goes, hit record on that. So he said, we're going to record this so people can see it. I said, yeah, she's kind of good looking. But I said, she took a bipedal anthropoid shape probably so she could fit inside here. But I've had her for 54 years. I'm used to her now, but it's been real handy. Health wise, she has a lot of power compared to us. I had last month, no, in October, I died in October twice. I had 5 heart attacks in 4 days. My blood pressure went down to 20/10. I'm dead. I'm dying. I'm dead. And the guy's looking at me. He said, I tell you this, son, but you're dead. You're dying. I said, yeah, okay, well, we'll see what happens next. So they took me in the ER and they put 6 stents in my heart, and I died on the table. So now they're looking at the monitor, the brain monitor, the heart monitor, everything's flatline, beeping. And he said, damn, I just hate to let him go like this. So they hit me with paddles, blew me off the table, and come back down, landed. And I was back. So they said,
Yay!
I said, my God, you made it. And I said, yeah. I said, you see anything? He said, yeah, there's all kinds of people out here. And they said, take him up to ICC. So I go up to ICC unit. And I'm there at 3:38 in the morning. I die again. I hemorrhage. I hemorrhaged 3 pints of blood out in 1 minute.
Ooh.
And I mean, my right arm and leg looked like they belonged to a black person. And it was all the blood. So they got it stopped, and I was dead again. Monitors all flatlined. So they hit me again. And I come back a second time. They said, "Hey, you're back again." I said, "Yeah, I was told on the other side to quit doing this." And I said, "I can't help it. I'm just a little person trying to survive here." And so anyway, I did meet a guy dressed in all white, looked like a 1860s, what do you call those things? The trench coat that went all the way to your ankles, chaps. It was like a writing chap, and he said he was writing. Nice smile, long hair, and dark skin, pretty smile. But he asked him, "Who are you?" And he goes, "Oh, you know me. I'm JC." "You're Jesus?" And he goes, "Yeah." He said, "And I've been told to tell you, you got to quit doing this. You got to help me here." So 3 weeks later, I'm driving a car
Wow.
after being dead twice. And they look at me in the clinic and they said, "Come here." So they take my blood pressure, 120/70, pulse rate 72, oxygen 99. And they said the EKG, a brand new machine they just put on me. And it says, "Look at this." What? He said, "I put 6 stents in your heart." So the EKG says no one has ever been in your chest ever. There's no tissue damage of any kind. Like
Is this
nothing.
from Emery's work?
No, this is from I think probably Pittsland. But
Pittsland.
Emery picked up on the same thing. Emery's work is pretty cool because he I had a terrible cough from some in my lungs, and he found it and he killed it, and it stopped. So I haven't had a cough since. And that was October, November, December. 3 months I've been without a cough. And I'm so glad to be rid of it because it was constant. You know, just you'd be sitting there watching TV and all of a sudden you start coughing and disturb everybody. But no, it's all gone. And he sent me this blue stuff to drink. I was kidding him. I said, "What is that, Windex?" So it looks like I'm drinking Windex.
It
But
does look like it.
it really does. And whatever it is, it works. There's no taste or flavor to it, but I just drink this water down and it works. And I hope
Awesome.
that helps you. That's really all I got to say about it.
Did you do a scan with him?
Yeah, he scanned me. He was, and then finally the scan shut down. He said, "What happened?" I said, "I think Pittsland's a little shy. I don't think she wants to be looked at." You're the first to look at her, by the way. That you're the first one ever to see her. He goes, "Well, buddy, your story's true because here it is. There's 2 of you on this table, on this couch, not just 1, 2." He said, "Look at the readings. It's picking them all up. And she has a stronger, faster heartbeat." I said, "She's a female. That's why." And he said, "Dang." I said, "God, David," because you just take this like breathing air. And I said, "Well, what else can you do? You know, it's just happened." And here
That's
I am.
awesome. Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive. Impressive marriage. It's a marriage of a higher dimensional beings.
Symbiotic relationship. It really
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
She said, "I'm sorry I caused you problems, but I had to patch up the lifeboat." Meaning me.
That's a good action and good call.
I told her, I said, "Yeah, I guess, well, thanks." And she said, "I agree with the entities on the other side. You got a lot to do. You got to go back and do stuff."
That's right. We need you, David.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
That's what
definitely need you. I have some questions, concerning that, but it's on the end. So next one, let's move it forward.
Yes,
Eric,
please.
Eric next. Eric, unmute, please.
Okay. I had a couple questions that I put in chat. One was, I guess, from before your presentation. I was going to ask, I don't know what you thought that the effect on the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 is going to be once the ET reality is fully acknowledged. You can put that. And the other question was, considering what you were talking about with the spacecraft having a space and time being wrapped around it, how that was different or similar to the Alcubierre drive. Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay. God, good question. I tell you, I learned more from question Q&A than I it's just amazing the stuff I learned. Brilliant questions. You know, y'all should be running the country. We wouldn't. All we got to choose now is between an eggplant and a maniac.
Yes.
It's just
So,
pitiful.
how would you answer those questions,
Um,
David?
it's very similar in nature. But there's a lot of stuff goes on. I'm glad to have Pitt around. She helps a lot because there's a lot of stuff. I'm be honest with y'all. I'm not that smart. Everybody thinks I'm so damn smart. I'm not. There's a lot of stuff I don't understand that goes on in these things, but I do know how to work with them. And the time distance continuum. I have to use, give you an idea of what it's like. It takes everything I know in quantum physics, differential mechanics, to wrap a handle around how they function. They operate well outside Newtonian physics. And I think the reason that is that, see, we have an atomic code. And our atomic code's only got like 112, 115 things on it. And I have physicists tell me that's it. I said, bullshit. That's the first page of maybe 50 pages of atomic codes. Just because it's not in our vicinity doesn't mean that stuff's there. There probably is a dilithium crystal. There probably are unobtainium, you know, like in Avatar. You know, this stuff's out there. We just haven't found it. So she comes in and uses stuff and takes it as a matter of fact. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, how does that work? And one thing I've been trying to figure out, anti-gravity. That's a tough nut to crack, y'all. So let me show you how it is in just the matrix. On the matrix of logic, you have something, reactors that's shedding out gamma rays. You put a slide of lead shield in there, blocks the gamma rays, and you're okay. Well, then what, following that matrix of logic, why can't you slide something between you and the earth and block gravity? It doesn't work that way. How does it work? I don't know. So it's very frustrating. If you're frustrated,
Do you know by any chance of the Space Treaty of 1967? Have you ever heard of that treaty or no?
I'm not familiar with that treaty. What's the terms of it?
Eric, what's the treaty?
South Space Treaty, basically it says that outer space, especially like the moon, Mars, is the province of mankind, and the effect of that has been that you can't really claim territory in space.
Yeah, okay.
And they said that you can put by private company. Now that private enterprises going, maybe will develop in space that way, and there'll be much bigger problems than astronauts leaving bags of feces in space. But there'll be the dream of space exploration is to have wholesale colonies up there, right. But is already foreclosed as an option if it is quote unquote their territory already. to begin with.
You're right. It's going to be, you know what it's going to be? History repeating itself. In the 1860s West, when we moved westward, we took over that land and we homesteaded it and started building settlements.
Mhm.
But what about the Indians that lived there? Well, they got displaced and there was conflict and killing and mayhem. And even up to today, it's still not resolved. We're going to run into the exact same problem again, except it's going to be on a much larger scale.
Yeah, so I guess the thing is are we going to be able to expand into space without war? That's the problem.
That's a damn good question. God almighty. I mean, you're so
Yeah.
smart to ask
All
that.
right. So what's the answer, David? Can we do that? Would it happen?
I think what's going to happen is, now you got to remember, I'm just going on feelings, and that's the only way I can communicate today with Pittslam. It's on feelings, and I'm. First of all, you're dead on target. That's a great question. We are going to have conflict, and that's why it's going to be a challenge for us, and we better learn more about conflict resolution than we know now. Hell, we won't even talk to each other. You're going to have to stop that crap. You're going to have to learn how to communicate and do conflict resolution, because it's going to be very busy out there with overlapping territories and stuff. And but if a person's thinking like you on the very beginning, on the outset, you're so much further ahead because you're already thinking about it. That's smart. And you're a smart dude.
Thanks.
They would have put you in charge out there. That's how you should be. That's how you should be thinking. That's my feelings. So don't stop. You're right on target. Keep thinking like that.
Yeah. See, Eric, hear it out from the expert. Okay, conflict resolution, Eric, and everyone on this call here. We have to step in and really be part of it, part of the service to others.
So
well, he's already
part
started.
of exopolitics will be conflict resolution.
Well, Eric, you already started, man. You're lead us.
Yeah.
You're in the right place.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Eric. Angie. Hello, Angie. How you doing? Unmute
Hello.
and ask question, please.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Hi.
My question is for Plitham, to the extent that Plitham can respond. Hello, Plitham.
Okay.
To me, it appears as a species that around 70% of our species is suicidal, homicidal, or genocidal, or or participates in looking away or supporting and funding the ceasing of other beings with our tax dollars. How does this compare to other spacefaring species? And can we evolve out of this? And question 2, what is the karmic damage to our soul for passively supporting through our taxes and money work?
That's what you're talking about? No.
God, those
That's
are
this.
both of them are
That's
excellent
4 pages.
questions. To answer your question, we're on the, hate to say this, but we're on the lower end of the stick as far as being advanced. We're not very good at, you're right, we're more homicidal. We're more violent prone than we should be. But to answer the other question, can we get out of it? Yes, we can. That's something that Pittslam has. She's had 54 of our years to experience firsthand how people interact with me. And she's amazed at how some of the stuff works. We're very complex. We're not a simple organism. We're extremely complex. We have potentialities that are amazing. But just as we have the propensity to be something great, we have the same propensity to be something horrible. It's like they go hand in hand. They can't seem to separate each other. It's the duality of human beings that the aliens find so interesting, because they don't have those problems like we do. And they're interested how we are handling them. Well, right now we're doing a pretty miserable job, like you said, because we're killing each other, we're killing ourselves. because it just can't stand it. But we have the ability to crawl out of this mess. It doesn't have to be this way with us. We can do better. It's just whether you can learn or not. In my own life, I've had to learn with criticism and arguments. I have learned to let go. And when I let go, it's not that I'm ignoring them. It's just I accept it and I don't get upset with it. That's really hard to do. It sounds easy when you say it, but wait till you're in a heated argument and then you have to stop and change directions, which I've done that. And especially emotions involved, relationships. I don't get mad at people. I just let it go. And that's not easy. It is very difficult to do. A lot of people don't want to do the work that takes that involvement, but I've never had that problem.
Does Polithon have any thoughts on karmic damage to our soul for passively supporting the murder of other beings and other people by supporting it with our work and our tax dollars, and by not raising our voice against it? Is there damage to us on a soul level?
In a single word, no. And why is that? It's because you have a very forgiving God. That's why. That's what I've just heard come through. She just said that, and I would have never thought of that. She thinks of things I have no idea until she tells me to do something. I'll give you an example how this works. I went to Wall Street. I was hired to fix these problems on people. So I got them fixed. And then the CEO told me about this one engineer and what he told me he's messed up and it's cost him a lot of money. But I said, he also made you a lot of money. He said, I want you to get rid of him. So I was taken back. I mean, you want me to be the hatchet guy here? You want me to fire this man? After all, he said, yeah, could you do that? I said, sure, I can do that. So I meet the man and I start talking to him. And then Pithlum just jumps in out of nowhere from inside. And she says, ask him about his wife. And I went, what? Ask him about his wife. So I asked him, I said, how are things at home with your wife? And the man tears up on me immediately. His wife is dying of cancer. Just found out 3 weeks ago.
Ouch.
And I went, oh my God, how long have you been married? 47 years. And I went, where is she now? At home. We're going to send people over to your house. We're going to take your wife. We're going to take her somewhere. We're going to get something done, get this fixed. You know, I'm glad you spoke up. And because he wasn't saying anything. Well, we get her to the doctors, find out, got it there in time. We eradicated the cancer and she's okay. He went back and made a $50 million patent within a week after that. So and they thought I was a genius and I was great. And I said, no, I wasn't. I just asked the man about his wife. And they said, well, none of us would have thought about it. And I thought, I didn't think about it. The female did. So that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that being female, she brings a side to problems I've never even thought about, and I've learned from it. So I hope y'all learned something from that.
Oh yes, she's a very wise, very wise.
Oh yeah.
You would not notice.
No, she has politely have put me in my place more than once. I was making comments. She's all excited that her family is coming to get her. I said, well, how long have you been here on Earth? About 56 million years. Well, aren't they a little slow? And then she turns around and says, not everybody runs on a linear Julius Caesar calendar, David. and
Wow.
time is not measured in minutes or seconds. I went,
Well,
oh, God.
when you are 13.5 billion years old,
Yeah,
what's a few million years?
it's not, it's like a few minutes to her.
That's right.
And I told her, I said, sorry about that. I'm just a little old human. She goes, yeah, but you do okay for a little human, and you do have ability to learn. You're not a bonehead. You do listen. I said, yeah, I'm trying to get it. But she said, you're doing okay. She said, you're a lot better than what you used to be. I went, that's because I had to live with you for so long. But yeah, apparently her family. See, I told her, I said, you know, in the Navy, when we lose a pilot, damn, within an hour, we're in motion to go get that person. And she said, well, not everybody runs on that kind of calendar. I said, yeah, well, I get it now. So I don't know. It's amazing to have such differences. I thought we would never get along, but actually we do.
Well, it's just to reiterate certain things for everybody. So, David, you said, acceptance. It's so very important. We have to be of acceptance. We have to go into our heart and live from our hearts. It's not just some pretty words. We have to do our work, do our internal work, do your shadow work.
Oh,
that's another important. And yes, we are part of the ever-loving creator source. That is our hope. We have to always know that we are connected with that via our heart. So yes, there is an absolute hope.
There's another thing you really have to pay attention to. We had just talked over the years, we talked about it. But one thing that everybody has this. It's called a moral compass. When you're two years old and you steal a toy from another child and make it cry, there's nobody around to tell you that's not right. You just know it's not right. It's your moral compass working. As you get older, you start to ignore that compass. Then trouble starts. But if you really pay attention to your moral compass and follow it, you'll stay out of so much trouble. And it's what separates us from the animals. We're the only, we're the strangest animal on this planet. We're born, we plop on the ground, we'll lay there and starve to death, lay in our own crap and urine and everything. And other animals hit the ground walking and nurse along with the herd and moves right along. We'll lay there till we're dead. Yet we are the dominant species on the planet. That is crazy how that works. But well, makes you think.
Yep. Thank you for the answer. So Paul, you the next. Paul Sperry, okay. Please unmute and please ask.
Okay, David, I've got a simple one for you, and then I'll leave with a little harder one. The simple one is based on your relationship with the Apollo 11 crew. There were reports that Armstrong got on a back channel during his landing that was picked up by ham radio operators, where he talked about craft on the rim of the crater that he landed near. Is there any truth to that story?
At first, through the years, I thought, no, there wasn't. But here lately, yeah, there is. Apparently, I saw a photo which was brought to me, and I asked Neil about it, and he said, yeah, Neil told me exactly where to look on the undoctored photo. We're in the crater and where to look on the vehicle. And I thought, okay, I remember this. Well, I got to see the photo decades later, and it was exactly what he said. There is a rim of a crater. There's another moon buggy, similar to ours, but different. Has a mast in the center for an antenna and a steering wheel, 4 wheels, but looks different than ours. And then there's a bipedal anthropoid person in a spacesuit leaning against it. And they're in the shadow of the crater. Whereas when you get the first photo from NASA, it's been airbrushed out. But this photo was the original, it was the original negative. And you can see this guy clearly. He's kind of nonchalant, leaning on the moon buggy with his left arm propping him up against the thing, just. And I thought, damn, so there is something to that story. And I think that's the people that live there who drove the RV there or whatever it is. So to answer your question, yeah, there is something to the story.
My deeper question is, I can't imagine somebody 13.5 billion years old connecting with any human. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea why Piphalum has chosen you to connect with? Does she have an agenda that you can pick up? Do you have a future role? Do you have any idea what you may be able to potentially do in educating the rest of us through that connection?
God almighty, is a great question. Yeah, as a matter of fact, to answer the question, yeah, there's been a real long conversation Pithlim and I have had, why me? And she gave an answer that was similar to Einstein. Somebody asked Einstein, said, what about original thought? And Einstein said, original thought is like lint in the wind. It just floats around and lands on people, and there it is. He goes, it's run by serendipity. And I thought, my God, what an answer. And she had, apparently she had scanned this world for quite a while. And I guess, like a computer does, how it has parameters and keep working away until finally all the cards fall in the slot. And then finally you get this one card that falls into a slot that's made it through all the others. And it's just, I fit all the parameters that she was looking for, she said. And she didn't know if she was going to find it or not, but she did in me. And I said, I tell her sometimes I don't know if you made a right choice or not, because it's that's a difficult thing. But she disagrees with me, and she said that she feels that she made a very good choice. So I told her, I said,
what you doing there, David?
I'm picking up pieces of my pipe.
Oh, no, that's not good. Your pipe. That was.
Yeah, my pipe got hit by the stain, and it went everywhere. Now I'm all back together. But I've had this pipe forever. It was given to me by a guy named Alan J. Hynek.
Oh, wow.
And he gave me this pipe. And ironically, the pipe is called Omega, made by Dr. Garbo. And that's the pipe that he uses all the time in all the films he's been in. And the Garbo plant is 35 minutes by car from my house. Go figure. So, but he gave me this pipe, and I've kept it ever since. And he was a funny person to deal with.
So back to your purpose here. What do you think you're going to be doing?
I ask that question every single day when I wake up. And I include the Almighty in on that question. I said, what do you want me to do? And since he's and it's a serious question. I'm serious. What did you? And I tell him, I even got to tell JC to his face, go tell your father whatever it is you want me to do. make it very clear and simple. No rhymes, no riddles. You know, none of this ye and the I, thee and thy stuff. Just tell me what you want. I will do it. I will die trying if I have to. But I'm not the brightest bulb in the box anymore. You're just going to have to make it very clear. And I don't get anything. I'm sitting there going, y'all still pissed off with me or something? You know, not telling me anything. And all I get is, I'll know when it happens. Like, oh yeah, that's great.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, could it not be that if we're the experiment, they don't want to infect the outcome? They want to see what we will discover on our own.
Wow.
And they may be feeding you clues in order for us to be helped to figure out how to respond and grow up. And
Well,
Kathy, can you turn on my video, Kathy?
that's an excellent observation, Paul, and that's why I learned so much from question and answers.
No, it's blocked. Oh.
I love the question and answer.
I will try to turn on your video.
Hi, Kathy.
Yeah,
I love.
Aren't you charged to turn on your video?
No.
Can you not see it?
That's an excellent observation, Paul. That's all I can say.
Yeah, so yeah, thanks for the answer. Yes, awesome. Thanks, David. So Joe, let's move on.
Now Paul's
you-
finally on.
We see your face. There is.
So now,
there's-
David, you can see Paul.
There's
Okay.
Paul.
The pipe.
Hi, Paul.
Nice background.
Hi, Paul.
Long, yeah. But my
Thank
question's
you very much.
sorry about that. My question's a little drawn out, and you know, at one time, not too long ago, they thought that space was just an empty vacuum.
That's true.
And then Alfvén came along and started studying the northern lights and found out the sun was shooting all of these protons and things at us. And they kept that secret for 60 years.
Yeah, they
They-
did.
They did not want that information out. And then with the finding of the Kordylewski clouds, you know, between here and the moon, you know, they found this plasma, this dust. There was something else that added to it. And now they're finding that this plasma is throughout the whole universe, and this plasma, the dust and things is essential in the formation of, at least if nothing else, some of our planets and galaxies. And I wonder, when I was looking at when they were shooting these, what the smaller version of this plasmoids in this magnetic chamber, and they were able to take and put photographs on it, and these photographs were coming out as exact replicas in minute microscopic form of spiral galaxies and other things.
Oh my goodness.
And I look at that and I think about the consciousness of all things, right? And it just sort of makes me wonder about that level of consciousness that is that maybe even highest intelligence that's in a form that we've never thought about even before, that instead of in the large, it's in the very most minute. And I was wondering if you had, with any of your space experience, that you've had anybody ever have conversations about the depth of what those possibilities might be.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. That's a thought out question. All right. The only thing I can come up with is a parallel answer. I'll have to use myself. You know, you're talking about reflections of looking at other things, other possibilities and stuff. And I came up with well, I had a question and I asked Pithlin about it, and she said, figure out a way to answer your own question. And I thought, Lord have mercy. That's putting it back on me. And I asked her, I said, why is it we just have just a handful super brilliant people come through once in a lifetime or once every other lifetime. We get somebody like Hawkins or Einstein, or and there's women in there too, because it's not just all men, the brilliant women. Why is it we just have just a handful? And she said, we'll figure that out. And so I went to a planetarium, and out in the foyer was this box, big plexiglass box, and it's called a cloud chamber. And it has a gas in it. And in that cloud that's trapped in this plexiglass box, you see all these white lines shooting through it in all directions. And you go, well, what is that? And the sign up there says, what you're seeing streaking through the gas is gamma particles that have traveled billions of light years away, billions of years ago, and they're coming through the roof of the planetarium, going through the cloud chamber, going through the floor, and they go about another 18 feet and they stop. And they said, and so I'm looking at this cloud chamber. I said, look at that. So I thought, and then Pistol told me, said, figure out an answer to your question. So I said, oh my God. I said, do you mean tell me a woman has sex? She gets a sperm in her with her egg, one sperm, one egg only. She's walking down a grocery store buying stuff, and that egg moves out, that sperm goes in, and as soon as that sperm goes in that egg, a gamma ray particle hits it, and they both go into the egg, and they create the child that grows up to be Hawkins or Einstein or, you know, or Michelangelo. And I thought, oh my God, did I just come up with an original thought? And so I offered, I took that to some colleagues, and sure enough, I built a machine that it is part of the endoscopic, when the male and female sperm and egg meet, and I mounted it where it can occur in a cloud chamber so we can see the gamma ray particle entering. And then I said, I wonder if I get any volunteers. I got hundreds of volunteers. They just came out of nowhere. I said, you people will. I said, you realize you're going to have a camera strapped up in there, and we're going to have to monitor this stuff. And I said, yeah, we're ready to do it. We're good for it. And I'm going, God, I can't believe people. I thought I would die of old age when I find anybody to help. And I had 100 people in the first day. So I said, I guess we're going to, somebody asked me, are you going to do the project? And I said, I don't know. I guess I will, but I'm trying to answer the man's question parallel. It's a difficult question. I can only answer by example. I've figured out a way to answer a question or a riddle that's been with us since dawn of time. You know, why is it just certain people and not all the others? Because see, that gamma ray particle, it carries I found out by researching it, the gamma ray particle carries a DNA encoder of its own. So if it should hit that sperm and egg, its DNA is going to match the DNA of the sperm, and that's where it's going to trigger the whole thing at conception, spark of life. And somebody said, you're telling me you're going to catch the spark of life on camera? Yeah, that's what the byproduct would be. And they went, well, which grant do you want? There's going to be about 1,000 grants for you if you want to do that. And it turned out there's all these people going, God, yeah, we'll fund you. Let's see what happens. Imagine seeing creation on film. Wouldn't that be something? Right when the sperm, the egg, and the gamma ray all go together, we get a picture of it. And they said, that's possible? Yeah, it is possible.
Wow.
And I was sitting there. So look at all the stuff I may have just discovered simply because I got to ask the question like he did. You know, figuring out a way to answer the question. And here I'm just trying to figure out a way to answer the question. I may have, you know, stumbled onto a whole bunch of other things. And that's the way it goes in science. Some of our best knowledge and inventions come by accident.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting to use the sperm and the egg, because I've recently read studies that said that the egg actually chooses the sperm, and it's not the survival of the fittest, you know, who gets there first, that she or the egg has some control over that. And then a gamma ray coming in with all of that energy in a smallest level is just a great example of that. Because I think when I look at things in regards to the word consciousness, or the Christ consciousness, you know, and what is that, right? And to me, that's just an extremely elevated level of what can be.
Yeah,
not having to define it, but just what is possible, what can be. And then I think there's no limit to that. I think it's infinite of what can be.
I like the way you think, Joe. You make me sit and think.
Does that make sense, though?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate your story, because, you know, that was an amazing story. And it's funny how I had just read about that other thing a week ago. And see how this just sort of flows.
Yeah. Synchronicity.
Well, I think I call it saying yes to the universe. And that requires sacrifice.
Or it's like Einstein says, serendipity. It's like lint floating in the air, and you and I just stepped on the same lint plane. That's all.
Yep.
God, that's really cool, Joe.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you for your question.
Jeez. Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Janet, you next.
David, I have so enjoyed your telling your life story. I think this is what's wrong with our society now. We don't sit around the campfire and tell our stories. And everybody.
No, we don't.
Everybody has some amazing things that have happened in their life. And we used to do that. We used to tell each other what happened. My son is an electrical engineer, and he just got back from a amazing display down in Las Vegas of the latest of everything, right?
Oh, golly.
And the thing that he was concerned about is this whole thing of AI.
Yeah.
And we both were discussing this, that of course we don't want AI to replace humans. And I told him, you know, AI can't do that. There's two things AI can't do. It has no imagination. It can replicate and it can mimic, but it has no imagination and it has no consciousness. And those are the two things that make it not a thing to worry about, but they will misuse it. Just like you were saying about some of your inventions, that they can be misused.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm so thankful for you. This has been a wonderful night.
I get embarrassed easily. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The question and answers are just so invaluable to me. And by the way, what you mentioned earlier, there was a name for it. There were those of us in society called oral traditionalists, and they would go from village to village to village, and they said, hey, he's coming. They have a big party and stop working and sit down and listen to him, and he'd pass on their culture, their the community thing. And we don't have that anymore.
The history.
Yeah.
And talk about synchronicity. I had a pipe carrier come to my house and do pipe ceremony, because all of a sudden I get interested in Native American spirituality.
Okay.
And after that, I had all these synchronistic things that happened over the years, where I met people of the native roots of all these different traditions. What a blessing, because every time I did ceremony with them, I had a mystical experience. They are so connected.
Well, that's, I tell you, The only religions I found on this planet that I trust is Native Americans.
Me too.
They got they got a better handle on it than anybody else I've ever heard.
They haven't lost their roots.
No, they haven't missed a step in where we have. And I always find that so interesting. The people we practically extinct had the best handle on the planet.
One of the last teachers I had was Cherokee. His name is Willie Whitefeather.
Okay.
Is so astounding. And he taught me the Cherokee judicial system. It is perfect. If we could just replicate that, you know, and it's so simple. It's so simple.
That's the problem. We're so stupid. We won't even take time to think about what we could get out of other cultures. And but we just, you know, I saw a film the other day. It was really disturbing. There was this platform out in the ocean, and all of humanity is gone. They've died. We killed ourselves off. AIs were running it. Aliens landed on it. Said, what happened here? And they said, here's the story of the humans. And they played it back. And when they finally came up to our time period, you know what the AIs called it? This was, you know, we had the Bronze Age and the Jet Age and all these times went through it. They said, what was the last one the humans were in? They didn't survive it. What was it? Age of stupidity.
Yeah.
And I thought, Lord have mercy, that's really disturbing. But it's so true. We're just so stupid. And the people doing the question and answers tonight should be running the country. Yeah. Should be.
Yes, there was a Iroquois Nation, history, a little bit history 101. Before there was United States Constitution, there was Iroquois Nation. Very brilliant people. They preceded us, and they had some awesome laws that really are amazing. They were amazing. Yeah. So I hope that ever returns back. So
don't you?
Yes,
we would benefit so much. But
yes, amen to David. So in the spirit of moving forward, let's see, Angie, you're the next.
Should we wrap up in about 2 minutes though, Ross?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay, David, it's up to you. We're indebted to you. Thank you.
I'm learning so much from these questions. God Almighty, I should be paying you.
I have a question on that too. Angie, go.
David, forgive me, but I actually have another question for Polithum.
Okay.
I'm an out-of-body traveler, and so I go to other planets really quickly, and so rockets are kind of slow for me. But but I do have a question for Polithum.
Sure.
And I just saw your screen blur, so I actually feel like she's listening to me. So thank you, Polithum.
Okay.
And Polithum, you're a very ancient being, and I'd like to ask you if you know of crystalline intelligences from other universes and what their longevity is and why they would be interested in coming to our universe.
You're going to like this answer. Their longevity, it's in eons, so it's apparently millions of years. And I have a hard enough time trying to survive 100. I'm at 70, and I thought, God, I don't want to be here more than 30 years. That's, you know, that's plenty. I was ready to leave last October. I said, I don't want to go back. Why do I have to go back? To piss somebody off? And they said, no, you got things to do yet. And here's an example. Just popped in my head. I told Jesus, I said, second time I'm seeing him in 2 days. And I said, okay, you want me to go do something? I said, I just turned 70 years old last week. And you know what he said to me? He cocks his head and he says, so Colonel Sanders was 70 when he started KFC. And I went, God, I got Jesus talking to me like this. I said, what am I going to do? You know, so it's just sometimes practicality of it. And why they find us so interesting? It's our humor. Even Pissum still struggles with it. They don't understand humor. It's a concept that's just so abstract. And the one particular humor they don't get at all is called dark humor. And, you know, like you and I just fought off 100 people, the enemy of ours. Here comes 500 more, and we're exhausted. And I tell you, you take the 250 on the left, I'll take the 250 on the right. See, you start laughing. We start laughing. They don't get that at all. It's just not possible for them to wrap their heads around it. And that's why they're so interested.
Well, thank you so very much for that. And on the same subject, does Pliffthem have any idea how crystalline beings from other universes get here to quantum leap tunnel or?
No, they use a form of the best I can understand it, it's like frequency, light travel.
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you.
It's like
Of
a
course.
light beam.
I
Beam of
totally
light.
get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I get it.
And
I totally, thank you.
She told me this rhyme: travel light, but travel right.
Yes, yes. Pliffthem, I love you. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. So we're gonna go with Paul, but before we do, I have a question. So David, I have watched your 7 hours, 8 hours of Dr. Michael Sala presentation. I have studied, I have digested, I have read up on it, and I wouldn't ask this question if I didn't listen to your presentation, to all the presentations. So I think so. You know, we are standing. We have this very large Indian elephant standing in the middle of our room. Basically, it's very visible. It's dressed in the yellow regalia, so we really cannot miss him. So, but really, it is a subject that I think so. No one wants to really want to talk about it. So I'm going to go into this very interesting rabbit hole. So you have conveyed. Yes, we have this NASA, which is quite interesting organization, reports to the Senate subcommittee. It's a U.S. Senate Commerce and Subcommittee on Space and Science. They are really, I'm sorry to say, anti-human, I would say. We have a U.S. Patent Office, which is trade part of the U.S. the Trade Office, which is the ports, which is goes to a U.S. Department of Commerce, which goes to a U.S. I don't know, government. I wouldn't call government. It's a really U.S. regime.
Okay.
Then we have a Smithsonian, which is another anti-human, I would say, organization that really denies our history. Then we have the FBI, we have a CIA. So if you speak anything wrong against the U.S. Patent Office, you are pretty much conveniently killed or disappeared. So and it's been very, very so we have this U.S. regime, which is, I would say, tyrannical and criminal. And with this, how long do we supposed to continue if everything is being stopped, stifled? Everything is being basically, we cannot really move forward as a that thing have to be dismembered, abolished, taken apart. So I'm calling for pretty much take down the U.S. regime. How do we do this so our civilization, our humanity moves forwards with those amazing innovations and our future space program?
I actually understood all that, which amazed me. But that's very well articulated. I'll answer with the answer that I talked to Kathy the other day about it. Kathy, you know this answer coming. There is, no, it wasn't Kathy. I'm sorry, Kathy. It was somebody else I was talking to. We are not alone. There is something coming now. It's it's fantastic in nature. And it's coming here. And to answer your question, I would say less than 14 months is all you're going to have to put up with it. There's tremendous changes coming that's coming with this. First thing you're going to notice is there's going to be an awful lot of famines, fires, droughts, more so than ever before in the history of man. That's coming. Another one, Putin is going to get very sick, and it's going to be natural. He's just run his course of time is what he's done. And in the middle of all this mayhem that's going to be going on, there's a new superpower rising, and it's one that will surprise some people, some it won't, but watch out for, not have to watch out for them, just watch them rise. India will become your next financial superpower. Everybody's saying, you know, we forever have had the world monetary currency, which means we can print as much money as we want and send it out across the world. That's how we pay our bills. We're what, 15 trillion in debt, 36 trillion in debt. We'll never get out of it because we just keep printing our own money. It's all based on paper, and that's going to collapse. The one thing, if you haven't noticed about India, its entire economic system from end to end is gold based, gold backed. Like we used to be in 1974. And then Nixon took us off the gold standard. But now India is in that position. But beyond all that, there's something coming. And it's coming from, it will be outside our solar system, and it's arriving. And it's going to change everything. You will not have to be putting up with this all. You ever been in a spiritual struggle for years, and it hasn't gone unnoticed? Steps are being taken where, like I said, you're not going to be alone. That's the problem with Earth. We have been so damn isolated from the rest of the universe in our own galaxy. And yet there are neighbors within a light year away waiting to help. But it's a matter of timing. The whole thing's based on timing. And you got to remember an old phrase, in God's own sweet time. It's biblical. His sense of timing has got a bearing on all the stuff that we're dealing with. I wish I could be more precise, but I'm giving enough away the way it is. But it's there is something coming for all of us. I don't think it's the second coming or first coming, whatever your belief is. But I do know this. However you are, if you can hear my voice, you need in your own personal life. It's an old phrase, old adage, but it rings. It's going to ring more truer than ever. You better get right with God. You better take steps to straighten yourself out and get into that position, because when all this happens, it will be too late if you hadn't already done it. And they'll know the difference. They'll know individually how it will happen. Like I said, it's fantastic what's coming. I never saw myself as a soothsayer or anything like that, but I'm telling you, there's something coming, and it's going to be good. And whether it's good or bad is going to depend on you. What kind of mode or your brain is set in, whether it's going to be good or bad.
Yes, thank you. So we have 24 people left on our call here, and everybody officially heard this wisdom from David. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for the great words and great inspiration.
And another thing, don't get down about all this. Don't get depressed. There is some really spectacular things in your way. It's going to get better. It is. You're not left alone. You know, people even moan. I hear them say it sometimes. God don't forgotten me. No, you're not forgotten. No, there are things coming that's going to get better. And you're going to be so happy with the way things will turn out. But don't sit there and let all this doom and gloom get you down, because it's not permanent. It's going to let go. It's going to lose its grip on you. And you just need to be in the right mindset. Have your heart right. Don't have a black heart. And things will get better. And I mean, last October, I was dead. I was ready to go. And I was told I had to come back. I didn't want to come back. I'm truthful. You've heard all my life stories. Look at all the stuff I've done. I've lived 20 lives already. And I was ready to just check out. You know, good. I was looking forward to take that walk down the hallway. And I was told, no, and I was told twice, you got to stop doing this.
Thank you.
So
thank you for being here.
Things are going to get better, y'all. Don't get down on yourself. Don't think there's no hope, because there is. Brother, it's coming.
Awesome. Great to hear that. On that note, Paul, your hand is up.
You know, thank you for that. David, your comments just now were so inspiring and uplifting and almost like a closure. I almost want to just let my question go if it's time for us to go ahead and go home.
No, please.
Because
please
I could stay online with you until midnight. And I think you'd stay as well.
I would.
This is a nice spot for closure if you want it.
Yeah, this is one of the best podcasts I've ever had. And believe me, I've had a lot of podcasts, but this is one that's been the most interactive one I've ever had. And I just love the question and answers, because it's like a free education. The stuff you learn.
Thank you. Thank you. So Janet, I know I'm going to honor your hand being up. Anything else, Janet? Your microphone. Unmute yourself, please.
I just saw that. David, or the rest of you, have you seen the messages that are appearing on the U.S. debt clock?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. I put out what I call Janet Lee's Real News, because I spend 60 hours a day looking for the real news. And then I have an email list, and I compile it and send it out. And there have been messages on the U.S. debt clock. You know what I guess they call them memes or memes. I don't know.
Memes.
And they are absolutely astounding. And they're talking about all these symbolistic things about that we are going back to the gold standard.
Yeah.
On the U.S. debt clock.
Things are changing. You know, there's an old phrase, the old ways for the best. They were. And we're finally going to wake up and do some of that stuff. You know, and because technology without the old ways is lame. You got to have both. The new stuff for growth, the old ways for guidance. Because you can't have.
The other thing I noticed too is that synchronicity is, it seems, for me anyway, it's happening more often.
Yeah. And time is speeding up. It's in a hurry.
Sure.
The reason for that is that it's in a hurry to get here. That
That's
fantastic thing I'm talking about, that's coming, it's in a hurry to get here. So you're feeling the wave in front of it. It's pushing. But don't give up, y'all. It's about to get good.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Kathy, do we have anything else? What's on our menu?
I think we're gonna forget our menu because this recording's already so long. I'll just put the post. But David, thank you so much. We would be happy to do this again with you anytime. Hi,
Sure.
Marianne. And just love this family here. Thank you all so much for your participation.
Oh, really?
And your part in the spreading the love and light for the new way of being, the new earth.
I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Your people. I appreciate your
And
people.
Oh yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, Kathy, also, and Gar for putting this on.
Thank
And,
you,
and
everyone.
Ross and Julia. There's a
And
there's a
Ross, yeah.
team of us.
Yeah.
That a mini team.
I've
Yeah.
seen
Yes.
you before. I don't know where, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I have met.
Well,
Very
you
good.
know, David, we're gonna do stuff together, you know. So we'll see.
I hope
We'll
so.
see what we do.
We
So
got a whole
Yeah.
tribe here, David. Next time you
I can
come to
tell.
Gaia,
I
look
wish-
us up. We got a lot of people that would love to meet with you.
Oh, I'd love to be there. God, it might be like walking into heaven.
Yep. Well,
Yes.
but thank you so much because we really do want to be part of the solution, and your help, David, with all of the opportunities to think in a different way, to really look at the opportunities and look at what's happening, even with what you talked about with using the space shuttles, get them out of storage and using
I
the
know
space shuttles. It's like,
that's-
how do I find, well, I want to find the money.
It's all the
Let's find the
mechanical
money.
stuff. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's
But I'll tell you this, Kathy. Out of the 54 years of talking I've give, thousands of lectures. Hell, I was a professional lecturer with the National Speaker Association.
Oh,
That's it. So I mean, I shared the stage with Tony Robbins
mhm.
and Zig Ziglar.
Yeah, I love Zig Ziglar.
I mean, I've been at it for decades. The point is, this is the first time ever in my life I talked about stuff like I've just told you. I have never mentioned that ever anywhere else. You'll never find another talk from this one that's like this one. This has been totally different. And it's been so much fun for me because there's a side of me that has all this other stuff that I don't get to say because I'm talking about space manufacturing, super crystals, metals, pharmaceuticals, all this stuff, space hospitals, and all the stuff that goes on with that. But this is the first time I got to talk extraterrestrially. If I said
We
that
could
word.
ask you a lot more questions.
Oh yeah, but not
That's-
tonight. Let's give them a break.
Yes.
And oh no, but seriously, we could do this again anytime, David. We can get a group together.
I'm up for it
and do
anytime you
it.
want to do it. You just
Yep,
think of a
yep,
time.
we would love it. We would love to host
Oh,
it.
Thank you.
anyway.
thank you.
You
That
just
would be wonderful.
I'll just pick a time, date, and place, and I'll be here.
Oh, thank you, David.
Oh, thank you. Bless you so much. And thank you all for staying with us and for telling your friends about this. We will be able to still view this because of the recording. So hopefully more and more people will be touched by this information and look at their be empowered for this new future.
Here's something for you to think about. Remember, I always ask God, what do you want me to do? This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This right here.
Nice.
So
Very nice.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Yeah, that's so that's so interesting. But
Well,
the feelings that when I talk to Pithlum and the feelings I get, my feelings are 100% on this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh, good. Well, we can get you on the circuit if you
Yeah,
want.
put me on-
That's what I do. So,
me on the
but
circuit.
thank you so much, everyone. Please I don't want to abuse our time with David and well, no, because I think that this is going to grow. I think that what the information
Yeah,
you
I
give
think
us
so.
tonight, once we
think
get
so.
to really embody it, there's going to be hundreds more questions
Yeah,
and other ways of us to interpret the data and get clarification. Because the access that you have to data, not just your accomplishments, which are remarkable, but having Lithium there to speak with Angie or to give us insights, it's gonna help us have a quantum leap, just that alone.
yeah, I can use all the help I can get.
Us too.
We love you.
Well, yeah, we do. Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate that. Thank you so
Anyone
much.
else?
Thank you.
Real quick, anyone else?
Don't let Joe Rogan know about him.
Well, you know what? This isn't really about that. This is about helping the light workers and the magic wielders show up.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I just wanted to say, David, there's a lot of us that are on a level of consciousness where we are working daily with extraterrestrial technologies that are 12th dimensional that we were given, or it just all kinds of stuff. I mean, you're not alone out there. You'd be
Yep.
surprised how many tribal members that you have, legitimate
I
tribal.
hope so, because sometimes it's a lonely feeling, like there's tumbleweeds blowing by, you know, it's like.
Oh, well,
Right.
get my contact information from Kathy Mason. She can even vet
Okay.
me. She can vet me. You're not alone.
Yeah,
No,
there's
we
a
have-
I'm
lot
as
of us.
far
that-
out there as you can
Yep.
imagine, and I can prove every bit of it.
Yes, we have a lot of starseeds, light workers, way showers. It's a very solid community.
Yeah.
David,
Okay,
The boulder.
David, we're your new tribe, okay?
I appreciate it, y'all. I really do.
Yes, okay. Well, I think what we should do is sign off for this session and bless
Okay.
you all. Sounds like we've got some integration to do for the next time. So
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
Gar. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Julia,
Bye,
there you are.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Ross.
Boulder EXO, and thank you, all of our friends. Thank you. Bless you.
Okay. See you next time.
I love Ross' accent. It sounds so cool.
Oh, thank you.
I do. I really like it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So Russ, I think you have to end the